Hello, and welcome to the fifth episode of the Mirandus Gentry. Before we get started today, we highly recommend that you stay with the end of the episode today. So to get back on track, today we have a special guest, GeneralFault, who is the leader of the Haven Guild. And today's episode, we will discuss the technical side of the play to earn gaming and the blockchain itself. Hello, GeneralFault. How are you today?
I'm doing good, thanks. Glad to be here. So I thought it'd be nice and exciting and to jump on here and chat with you guys.
Oh, thank you. Awesome. And so, if we want to kick it off today, so our first question of the day will be, how is crypto being used in games? And anyone here, GeneralFault, if you would like to start off. Otherwise, if anyone else would like to start off.
I'll share something.
Yeah, go ahead, Luke. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to share that something timely because I just had a conversation before this live stream with a really good friend of mine and business partner of many years ago, but he's oblivious to this space. And so I found myself trying to explain to him, and it's a strange conversation to have because there's so many different ways that it will be used that we haven't even discovered yet. Just my initial thoughts on how it's being used, it's going to be the underbelly of the economies that are forming that are going to bring an element of realism that gamers have been craving for quite some time. I know there's a lot more, but that's the thing that pops into my head at the start.
Yeah.
Go ahead, General. Yep.
Yeah, I was. I like how I believe Bitbender said it when it comes to crypto in games, and I think he and the way he mentions it, and I have to agree as well. It has a lot to do with maybe abstraction because I think saying to people that it's a blockchain game, sure, that's fine, but a lot of people don't even know what that is. It's like saying, hey, I'm playing a game on the internet, and not many people tend to know how the internet works. But, you don't really say it's an internet game necessarily. You just say it's a game, right? And some people just say it's a game that's online, but people don't even know what that means either, except you play with people. So I mean, when people hear it's a game, they know what a game is, right? And I like kind of how Gala is taking that stance. So Gala has decided to, let's advertise it as a game first, and we'll create a layer so that you can play within that game and trade within the game itself, but it's not on the blockchain, but it's you still own the item, but it's like layer 2 type of thing, right? If they want to cross that membrane, that barrier into the blockchain world, that is why they had the vaults. And the vaults were supposed to be that way to get your item into the real world, so to speak, into the blockchain world. And so they could cross that barrier anytime they were comfortable to do so. And I've seen this done incorrectly, I think, in a lot of ways. I've seen, like, for example, I believe there's a CSC game that I kind of enjoyed to play at the time, but I think they charge you like $50, $60, $70, $80, something like that to just to mint an item, out of their game, which kind of, like, why would I want to pay $50 to take an item I own out of the game? Like, that's a bit much. Like, that they're pretty much trying to prevent you from doing it, right? But I mean, there's some games, I think, and I like the way Gala is doing this, is that you can even rent items you own. I think that was pretty cool, right? In Mirandus eventually, and we'll talk more about these things later. But in the realm of blockchain in games, I think we don't want to turn people off, by giving too much detail that could scare people away. We don't want to scare them, right? I mean, I can tell you a number of times my mother-in-law, I would tell her something, and it seems the most simplest thing to me, and right away her mind shuts down. She's like, if I say blockchain, she's like, oh, I don't know what that is. I'm too old to start learning now. She said, don't talk to me about that stuff. It's like right away it shuts down. I'm like, it's just a game. It's like, yeah, but as soon as they said blockchain, it's like, I don't know what that means, right? And it's like right away, there's like, they shut down, right? Yeah. but again, the new generation picks it up, and my wife's Filipino, so her family. I just learned that some of her family members just started making some big money with Axie Infinity. So I didn't even know they were playing it. I started getting my family posting pictures, and they're like, they just got paid, so they're like posting cash in their hands to other family members. And I was like, "What's that? What's that game they're playing?" And so they're slowly starting to discover that, and so that's kind of nice. But yeah, I mean, it's blockchain games are becoming more and more widespread, and I see that even amongst my extended families now. So
I agree with what you're saying, 100%, GeneralFault. It's interesting to me because it's like what you say as far as the blockchain will work better if it's invisible, just like the internet, right? The less complicated. I mean, a lot of it. I mean, obviously the early Bitcoiners got the most value, but I couldn't have got in back then. It was way too technical for me, And then now you fast forward. We're all early adopters in NFT gaming, but that's because we understand it at the level that the masses don't understand it yet.
Yep.
But at the same time, to me, what crypto games and NFT games and blockchain games, whatever you want to call them, what that really means is community ownership for the first time in history of these platforms. You know what I mean? And like you're saying with Axie, I mean, those people are there because they have ownership and they have vested value that they can move out of that ecosystem or into that ecosystem at their own will, and that's what gives it real power. So I mean, to me, this is a huge revolution. I mean, there's a whole new world basically being built right now because of this ability, and it's very exciting.
Yeah, I would even liken it to like games you might buy for 8-bit Nintendo back in the early '90s or something, or games you might play on your bulletin board systems or BBS back, for those who know what it is, back in the '90s. But showing my age now, I guess. But I mean, there's no networked games per se back then, right? And so I mean, if as soon as you start saying that I'm playing, a game in the cloud or online or stuff like that, you're moving into the network realm. People had to adopt what that meant, right? And that took took a bit of time, not so much, I guess, but really people, the people didn't adopt the networking per se. They already knew how to play games, right? And so they were just presented with a UI to be able to connect with other gamers, and then suddenly some other person pops in their game, and they're online, right? They don't have to know about routers and Ethernet cables and all this stuff. They just play in their game, and hey, look, there's another guy there, and I can play with them, and it's all kind of hidden from them slightly, right? And I like to see blockchain a lot more like that. You're just there, and you just happen to have crypto, or you have an item, and you just transfer it and stuff, and maybe you do it all within the game, right? And it's almost practically seamless, and you don't have to worry about the blockchain and all these technical mumbo jumbo, and you just do it and get it done, right? And that's it.
I think the worlds themselves change very little with blockchain being added to it. For example, I remember playing World of Warcraft and having only a window of time to play, like during the holidays. And so I would actually go to one of the online stores where people farmed gold. I'd buy myself a boatload of gold so that I could kickstart instead of grind to actually go in and have an in-game experience. So that's an example of paying a fiat currency to actually enhance my gameplay inside the game. The place where I think crypto gets a little confusing for people is the on and off ramp. And then the other question is why? And of course, the why is that's actually what gives us ownership of the in-game assets. But then the on-ramp and off-ramp is the part that still people struggle to wrap their head around. So what you're saying is I've got to take money from my bank or from a credit card, sign up for an exchange, get a cryptocurrency that I can then use in the game. And then if I create value in the game, I have to use that same reverse process to get it out and make it a real world value. Those are the parts that I think are still confusing to people. But using of in-game currency, we're already familiar with that because every game has it.
I think that's a thing though that's actually more of a cultural Western thing than it is a worldwide thing. Because I mean, if you look at how fast the Philippines adopted it is a perfect example. They're running off multiple currencies over there. You go to some places in Africa and they're they're trading, maybe 7 different currencies in some places, right? So it's really similar to, when you travel to a different country, you use the currency that's there, and I think Westerners are going to be behind in this, but at the same time, it's not so complex that they can't pick it up. I'm sorry for stepping on you, Ultra.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, well, jumping off your point, I was gonna say I think for Westerners it's a little bit harder to adopt just because we're comfortable.
Right.
Like, why do we want to change our ways if we're doing it this way? Oh, now I have to play a game. If I want to play a game and buy this in-game asset, now I have to learn how to do the blockchain. And then they're going to be like, oh, I bought Bitcoin. It's like, no, this game only uses Ethereum. It's like, what the hell is that?
Yeah. There's a lot of onion layers to it when it comes to this early stage in developing the onboarding process for multiple different platforms or networks. When people are coming in, like Jess said, you have to have your credit card. There's at some point you're going to lose somebody because they understand credit cards, they understand syncing accounts, to some extent, and then it just kind of falls apart because they don't know maybe what's going to happen or how to operate the next steps after that. So the way we might explain it now, we would more or less have to use examples of what they already know, just to cradle them along, or just share some content on YouTube. But crypto is definitely being used as incentives in games, I feel, to bridge the gap between, and it's multifaceted. I'd say it's not just simply companies are using crypto in games. If we're talking just NFT crypto games to make more money, right? But the industry is changing, so people are paying attention to that. Just like when the internet, .com bubble, and everybody saw the changes coming, right? But was it who were the ones who took and trailblazed those paths to and now it's become the new world we're living in. So whether you know about modems to the scientific details and how everything intricately works, it's maybe you don't even need to learn that, right? It'll get easier and easier over time, and then for sure it'll be seamless behind the scenes, and we'll all be playing games like we do now, but just on the blockchain.
That I agree with one of the things that people will have a problem with the onboarding. I agree with that. That's like, for example, having to create word phrases for your wallets and having multiple wallets, and what is a wallet? And I just a few days ago, my nephew was trying to I was trying to get, like, he's been interested in getting into the GPU mining kind of side of things, and I told him about NFTs and other stuff, and was kind of teaching him about blockchain, and he kind of knew a little bit about it, but he didn't know much, and he wanted me to teach him some more. So I started showing him some more stuff, and he decided to go watch some videos on the subject. But he was always confused about, where's his wallets exactly, and how do I get a wallet, and how do I install it, and and he thought his wallet address was his passphrase, the 12 words of the of the. And this guy's been playing games for quite some time, right? Like, he's already 18, 19, whatever, and he's all through his and he's a pretty smart computer guy, and as smart as he is, he's smarter. He's pretty savvy. I would say he's pretty savvy. He's not a programmer or anything, but he knows that he's built his own rig from scratch. This guy knows his stuff, and so even him, right? He's thinking that, okay, his 12-word phrase, is his wallet address, right? So where does that leave everybody else? That's pretty glaring issue right there, right? For one thing, it's words, not an address, but people don't understand your address is actually a hash, and from a programmer's perspective, it's like breathing. Everybody tells me this. She's like, why do you the way you do programming and logic? It's like you're breathing. It's like my second nature. It's like I don't even think about it. And the complexity of things to me is simple in a lot of ways, because I've been doing it for 30, right, 35 plus years, whatever, right? So it's that's so natural to me. But to most people who've just discovered this yesterday, it's just so daunting, right? And it's like, where's my wallet exactly? Even on the okay, I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm also a moderator on the Sandbox, right, by Pixel, cool. And we always are getting support issues of people saying I can't find my items in my Sandbox wallet, right? Because they think the wallet's on the Sandbox site, right? But it's not, right? It's with a third party, right? Or MetaMask. You have to pick, right, where you want your wallet to be. But then And then your private key, you have to track your private key. Keep that key safe. You're going to lose your entire collection. All your cryptos are in the toilet if you don't have your passphrase. And stuff like that. So I mean, and this can be daunting. And I'd be like, man, like if your computer crashes and you have MetaMask and you haven't backed it up, man, everything's gone, right? I mean, that could be scary too. So yeah, all of this together.
I must embarrassingly admit that a few years back, I lost about $4,000 in crypto kitties because I didn't know where I still to this day don't know where my key is.
Oh, I wonder how much that's worth today.
Right.
It's all right. It's $4,000. That's what
Stick with that.
One last thing I would like to add, I guess, just to make it easier. Someone mentioned this method for me, and they're like, think of it like Facebook. How did Facebook roll out? And it was at first, when it first rolled out, only college kids. You had to have a .edu in order to access Facebook. That's how I got in. I never went to college, but a friend of mine who did go to college mentioned to me, he's like, hey, look, there's this thing called Facebook. It's only for college kids. I want to keep in contact. Here, borrow my EDU. And actually, if I look at my Facebook, my primary EDU is still his EDU, and my secondary is my Gmail. And he was just like, yeah, we're going to keep in contact. And I've had Facebook since 2006. And and he was just telling me, and then, well, to use that knowledge, GeneralFault would be like my friend. He was already in Facebook before it even came out of the colleges. And then I got it around that time. I was only lucky because I guess you call me like an early insider, person that got in really early. But then right now, the way crypto is, it's like trying to explain Facebook to your aunt and uncle when after all the high school kids finally had access to it, and then they're trying to explain to everyone. That's where crypto is. I think right now crypto gaming is still in that EDU stage where it's still there. No one really knows about it. They're just like, oh, you can play to earn? Cool. How do I make it? And it's like, well, let me walk you through how to set everything up. And I think we're slowly getting into that high school phase where it's all right. Now everyone is starting to slowly get into it because they're trying to figure it out. But still, like you were saying, someone that can build their own mining equipment just can't figure out wallets. And it's like, yeah, like you need to know this stuff or you're going to lose your stuff.
Yeah, it definitely takes two different, like very different niches of expertise, like MMO or gaming experience, plus being able to like handle blockchain technology. There's going to come a point that there's not going to be a return from when we start to see games like kind of Axie is now, but more on like a AAA standard where there's like a proof of concept and everybody wants to get in and they're going to like push past that hurdle if they really want to, because like a financial incentive is one of the biggest you can give someone.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. Like the lingo of I guess programming, or the current words that we associate with I guess learning from the beginning, which is wallets and addresses and Web3 applications, and all these different terminology could be used as examples of what people might have experienced already. The technology is new as far as like the blockchain, or maybe not even new. It's been around, but now it's being utilized in many ways. And I don't think it's gonna take that long. Like it's taken a while already, but everything's going to accelerate. And like you said, Fancy, the incentives is what pushed people to do things that they didn't think they would want to, or they thought they would have to. So
at the end of the day, money always talks, right? Money talks.
Yeah.
It's like how Amazon stopped people going to stores in real life.
Right.
Have you guys heard Ecuador recently adopted Bitcoin?
Yeah.
As the currency? Yeah, I mean it's backed by the country's central bank, right? I think. Yeah, I mean, as things start moving forward and more like large adoptions, like Elon Musk, for example, when he first jumped into Bitcoin and jumped out and probably jumping back in again. So I don't know what's going on there, but because I think it has to do with the footprint, I guess, the energy footprint and Bitcoin and everything. But anyways. But I mean, you see big players starting to jump in and get involved, and I think it really starts to add push and force, right, and sway to an acceptance, I guess is the word I'm looking for, to the blockchain stuff, and I think maybe, I mean, it's maybe education, because of the wallet system, the onboarding process, maybe abstraction isn't such. I mean, abstraction has its place, but perhaps targeted training. For example, you don't have to train people about blockchain, but train people about their wallets, for example.
Hmm.
Like how to create a wallet, how to use a wallet, stuff like that. I think it's like, for example, when I have my bank account, right? Then I go to a teller, and she starts teaching me and training me a little bit about, I create a card, how do I use my card, my PIN, etc. Right? I mean, you need to know how to access, use a card. When I got a card from my mother-in-law, she was like, you got to teach me how to use this thing, because she's so out of touch with this stuff, and 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 so I mean, but that's all she needed to know. Like, just your card, your PIN. That's it. Now she goes around, she does her thing, and everything's fine. But she doesn't have to know how the machine works and all the networks required between the ATM machines, right? She doesn't have to know like how the computer program works behind the scenes. She just has to know her card and her PIN. That's it. And I think if we teach people like, what is a wallet address? Where's your wallets? Exactly. Where's it stored? Like just the basics. What is a private key? How do you keep your wallet safe? How do you protect yourself from scammers? Right? It's kind of like the email. How do you protect yourself from email scams? We had some programs like that at my workplace one time, at a previous work I was at. How to protect yourself from scammers, how to use your email properly, right? And it saw a big reduction in scams and a larger increase in using your email properly. I think we just need that for the wallets. That's it. Like, we don't need to teach people blockchain. We just need to teach them how to use their wallets. Where and so that they can be prepared to use that. With the blockchain applications or the dApps, whatever, right? And whatever else you want to call it, like any kind of blockchain game application. I won't call it game, application in general.
I wanted to get your guys' opinion. This is a good comment from the Farmers Guild. New term, at least to me, that I've been hearing is DeFi gaming. It kind of goes back to what we've been talking about as far as, we have all these different terms, right? NFT gaming, blockchain gaming, crypto gaming, all this different stuff. How important do you guys think that these terms are going to be? Do you think we're all going to solidify on one? Or do you think it's just going to go away and it's just going to be gaming like GeneralFault mentioned earlier, and we're not even going to talk about it anymore?
Well, I can tell you, Bitbender doesn't like crypto because crypto is cryptography, right? And cryptography has nothing to do with is the underlying technology, but it may not be like crypto coins. It's just we don't go around saying, "Yeah, I got fiat Canadian dollars." It's like everyone's like fiat. Probably a lot of people don't even know what that means, but they don't care, right? You just call it, I have currency, right? One day maybe it'll all be just currency. We won't be saying it's crypto.
It's like, oh, I have some cash. Which one though? Physical or digital?
Yeah, US, USD, US dollars, Canadian dollars, Bitcoin dollars, whatever. I mean, like at one point it'll just be like linear.
Yeah, I think that no matter the name, it's not going to make a difference, as we've talked about earlier, because there'll be such an advancement as far as the seamless back end operations happening. It won't be necessary to learn everything on the back end and how to use Etherscan, although it's a great thing to know. You can literally track and find out everything, and what everyone else has based off of the wallet address. You can make multiple wallet addresses and diversify what you have into different ones, and then somebody who knows, but it's a very detailed way of like an immutable ledger of sorts, where everything is just recorded, and people won't necessarily need to learn that. The majority of people who are going to come in, I always refer to the 80-20 rule. So like 80% of people, I guess we're the 20% here, the early adopters, and some more will trickle in. But as far as like in the next couple of years, I think that the name DeFi, it'll probably die out. Like it's going to make sense to people eventually of how it started. But once this becomes just a way to make money, it's not necessarily decentralized. It's because there'll be some component of a game company who uses crypto that'll stay centralized. For example, like Embersword, they'll only allow you to do skin trading, right, and nothing else. And then any type of transactions that take place if you own land, in those plots that you own, you'll earn a percentage of the. So technically the servers aren't decentralized, right? I think Gala Games is the only one that I think right now is trying this decentralized server that the games are going to be run on. But you can't have a decentralized server without a white paper and the way the tokenomics are going to be structured. So even with these words tokenomics and all these things, everyone's just going to need to have a plan as far as the gaming companies making games, and they're going to have to learn faster than we are. We're learning to come across with the information that's digestible for everyone coming in, so you don't have, I guess, the lashback or the confusion in their own community that's building of like, wait, so how does this make sense? What is the utility? Okay, you said like the earning potential or investment. These are all legacy traditional words that we're using to comprehend what we're gonna get out of this new decentralization, the NFT gaming world, right? And what's attracting us to ask these questions is the fact that there's money involved, the incentive, like Francie was saying. Like for the most part, people, even young kids, I'm hopping into Discord chats in other project games, and these kids sound like they're 15 years old, and even they're asking like, "Oh, I could make money off of this. Well, how much can I make in a year?" Like these are basic questions, and if they're interested, then why wouldn't you think that these are going to be questions that are asked by full-grown adults? If I was the parent of this child, I would want to know too, because now I'm like, okay, well, is our money at risk, right? It's a whole learning curve for everyone. So not to be too hard on game developers, but if they're going to take on these responsibilities to use crypto in gaming, then they need to turn not a blind eye and look at other companies that are doing the same thing that they're trying to accomplish. It's a race. It's ultimately a race, and there's enough space here still for everybody. So I just would like to know if particular games, Gal included, are looking at other projects and seeing how they're utilizing crypto in their own projects to incentivize people to come and play their game. Everyone's going to have a different genre. It'll get diluted and oversaturated at some point, like it is now with all these shooter games, right? FPSs and MMORPGs. And at that point, pick your choice. But as far as everyone learning, I think it's going to happen. Just like everything else happens, we're all going to get there.
No, that's a really good point, which actually follows up right into the next question, which is how should crypto be used in games?
In a clear-cut way that people can understand.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think everybody knows by now how much I believe in decentralization, right? So to me, I think you have a great opportunity to free yourselves from the gatekeepers of society in a way. I mean, there's something to be said when Amazon can shut down your access to your servers for your game. You know what I mean? Or you've decentralized it through a node network. Those are two different things that are very powerful. And when you look at what's going on right now with Axie Infinity, where they're taking, I mean, it's a good thing for the Philippines, right? But it's also a loss of control for the leaders in the Philippines, But that's a huge boost to their economy, obviously, right? But then you look at where's that money coming from? These Western countries, right? So does America feel great about that? Does the UK feel great about that? These are things that are not so much a problem right now today, but they could be a problem in the future. And how people protect themselves from that, how these gaming communities protect themselves from that is going to be important, I think.
You actually raised an interesting question there, or topic there as well, because I have heard one of the issues or concerns that governments have is losing control of their fiat currency if everyone starts adopting crypto, right? Like imagine if like I'm in Canada, imagine if everyone switches to Bitcoin. It's just like screw the Canadian dollar. It's like we're not going to use it at all, right?
It would make sense to do so.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that the government's going to be kind of like, what the heck? We don't even have a currency. We can use it in our own country. That we have control of anyway, right? And the government's are losing control, and I think that's what scares them the most, right?
And then the people always move over to something where it helps better their lives. So if the country's fiat isn't working, but Axie Infinity with Ethereum is working, they're going to move to that, and that's what they've been doing.
Well, yeah, exactly. And again, I have, I just saw pictures recently of family members, and they're just getting my niece now getting her involved, and she just I think started getting into college recently, And so they're getting here into Axie Infinity and a few other games in crypto. And I mean, it's starting to become a big thing over there now. Like everyone, it's hitting close to home. So, and I didn't even get them involved. It's like somebody else got them, somebody else got somebody else involved, and it's just started a chain reaction. And suddenly, you got a whole extended families getting involved over there, right? It's crazy.
So I guess my opinion on how should crypto be used in games, it's a little conflicting because with the scholarship program of Axie Infinity and how successful it is, it gets me thinking of, like Bon just mentioned, I thought about this a while and had conversations with others in the space of how if the government is for what's happening, and a lot of people, even pharmacists, I know a pharmacist or two that quit their job to play Axie Infinity full
Wow,
time.
that's amazing.
So if we're going to go down the path of the GDP of the country, right? Like stores are accepting small love potions, and people are not going to school, or not fixing the roads, or not building the bridges, or not. So if we're going to just have a whole country, I'm exaggerating here, but the potential is there with all crypto games that are coming out. If everyone is eventually just going to get on games in third world countries that could make more money. And we're not talking about like a lot of money. Like it'll be more than what they make in 8 hours. If they can make that in 4 hours, they'll quit their job.
Yeah.
I wouldn't see why they wouldn't. If the game is going to stay around, it's not a rug pull type of project that's just leading everyone on to steal their money. So if people are going to be less incentivized to work jobs that the country needs people to be working, then how does it's going to destabilize the country and its currency? So the value of, and this is, I guess, long term, or maybe not, as far as the growth of Axie Infinity, this happens in such a short amount of time where a lot of the population is already, even in Argentina and Venezuela. I guess for all scholars out there, you should diversify your scholarship base, and because if the government frowns upon it, whether no matter how the crypto is used in the games that these companies are developing, they'll just ban it from their country, right? And it'll get shut down. So now I guess we would need to depend more on the Western part of the country with more money, of the world with more money to keep these games afloat as far as like crypto and how it's used in games. So it's kind of like where do we, it's just thinking.
What happened to China, right? I think they canceled a lot of cryptos and created their own coins.
Right.
Yeah, but
China coin.
But when they did that in
crazy.
China, the use of Bitcoin, when they banned Bitcoin in China, the use of Bitcoin actually went up.
Yeah, because you can't really ban it.
Right. You can't ban it. It's decentralized.
There's so many different ways of working around things. Go ahead, sir.
It's all good, man. You talk as much as you want. No, the Ray. I agree with you, Ray, as far as the need to spread this thing to other countries. I've been working on that myself as far as trying to find other options. Not that, I mean, the Philippines are great, but just finding other options, other countries where people would also find the same kind of value, so that it spreads and it's not locked into one locale.
Right.
But to push back a little bit on what you were saying as far as the necessary jobs going away, that's just free market capitalism right there. I mean, the fact of the matter is the incentives will have to be shifted. You can't pay a garbage man, a low wage if he can sit home and play a video game and make more money. You're going to have to incentivize that in a different way. Yeah. And, I mean, that'll just bring more notoriety to what's really important in the society. Do we need pharmacists? Well, then pharmacists need to get paid. That just shocked me right now when you said that pharmacists were quitting their job. I mean, that means they were getting paid a pretty low wage, right? I mean, they're not making enough to make playing Axie more attractive,
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say one way I was thinking you would have to incentivize, like you said, and a couple ways is either pay a higher wage, or you can even set off the side so like you have a lunchtime and then maybe like during their break, but like a 30-minute break, like, all right, Axie break, boys, whip out the phones, let's go. And then that way they can work their job, but then they also have a little bit of time to earn a little bit of that extra money on the side playing the Axie Infinity, and that way they're still playing if they don't want to increase the wages up to something that's more manageable for them to live on.
That's a solution to a universal basic income there, Osha. What are you doing there? That's mind blowing.
Yeah, because if anything, these real world companies are in competition with gaming companies. If this is the route that all of us are going to be going down, as far as they're not hiring all the Filipinos, right? They can offer you to rent out your exemplars if it was Mirandus in this case, or your ships in Star Atlas, but they didn't hire you and they're not paying you directly under the company's payroll. But enough people would get on board if they're making enough money to support their family or themselves. So now you're going to have this competition in the workforce, right? I guess it's all to scale depending if you're in the West or if you're in a third world country. But I just find it interesting as the popularity grows and the money that you can make is a good enough amount to live off of and pay for your expenses in life. I guess we'll have to see.
So here's an interesting consideration that plays into all of this, including that comment about finding balance there by Blarg. One of the things that comes to mind for me is that I think we're going to run into an issue with the use of crypto in games where we see big players dive in and scoop up a tremendous amount of assets at the beginning. I think one of the things that's going to make games playable is to have a well-seeded and balanced economy to begin with. But when we see things like recently, like a token released, where 25 million are snatched up in 31 seconds that go to 32 wallets, and then you have that kind of dominance. Well, I look at games like, when Star Atlas is going to be releasing their Atlas coin, or even if it's not a coin directly, when there are assets released, what's to stop big whales and even corporations in the future saying, look, there's opportunity here. How about as soon as these things are launched, we just snatch up all the assets and then we control the economy? So I'm curious to see what companies will start to do to make sure that their economies are seeded correctly and that there's not this heavily weighted beginning based on those that have the ability to just come in and snatch things up.
I don't think it's really built yet as far as the solution to that, Jesse, but one thing I have noticed as far as like some things in the Cardano community is they've seen that, right? We've all seen these tokens get snatched up by whales when a company launches or whatever. And so one of the interesting models that I've seen come out lately in Cardano is ISO, I think they're calling it, initial stake pool offering is what they're doing, and they cap it so you can only earn so much, but basically what you're doing is you're taking your Cardano and you're staking it into a pool and you're getting those initial coins out. So it kind of decentralizes the initial community a bit, and it doesn't allow for the big whales to come in, especially with some of those projects. They're actually doing it prior to their token sale. So they're actually giving out to the community before they allow those initial investors to come in. So that's something that might work. I mean, it's not proven yet. It's a brand new thing, really. So, who knows? But definitely it's going to be on these teams and these builders, these geniuses that are building these blockchains. They're going to have to come out with something to protect themselves and the community that they're trying to create, because the last thing you want to do as a creator is come out with a governance token per se, and that governance token doesn't end up decentralized. If it all ends up in the hands of some corporation or something, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah,
one wallet. You're back to square one again.
You're right. Just a note on
corporations controlling finance. Yeah.
Right, but just a note on different ways that I know. I'm not all knowledgeable myself. I never created and released a token, but I do know it's not the most complicated thing as far as creating one, but as far as releasing it to the public and what percentage goes towards a Dutch auction, which was the case for YGG. I think that's the coin you were referring to, Jess.
Yes.
So I think it was only 8% from my research that was released for the auction the day before it was publicly able to be traded on decentralized exchanges for who provided liquidity. It could have been those whales that bought in, or it was YGG themselves who have tokens which I think 45% was going to be released to the community, and in different ways that they'll be able to obtain those tokens is by playing in the guild, right, and doing certain tasks, and there'll be giveaways. So a little less than half is actually for the community. It was just that 8% that was for the auction, where people knew and maybe researched and saw the value in YGG themselves. Hey, I don't know them personally. It could have been a whale. It could have been Goldman Sachs Jamie Dimon, who, for all we know. But but the thing is that there's different ways to go about releasing X percentages over time or at a specific point. And for whoever the seed investors were, there's a lockup period. So that's also a thing where it's just like there won't be a dump on the market to all the people who actually wanted in the community the coins that couldn't afford it. So it's interesting that behind the scenes, the way some tokens do a release, it might not make sense to a lot of people, but that's what we were just talking about. A lot of people don't even know what their wallet is, where it is, private keys, DeFi gaming, blockchain gaming. So a lot of people jumped the gun. And I happened to be in the chat of YGG just to see the sentiment right after only 32. It was mayhem. It was mayhem. And a lot of people are shooting shots and low blows and just like upset about it because their fees were taken. And then, and in addition to that, it's just like you have to verify the currency that you're going to be using with either SushiSwap through your Web3 application. So everyone might have been waiting just to approve their USDC to purchase the coins, but then you have to do a second transaction to actually get the coins. And by that time, it was already all eaten up. So you can do that on the back end before you even get to the platform. So a lot of people, there's still so much to learn, and these little tips and tricks do help. It's just a shame that the larger community could make such a negative association and impact in the beginning. But that's with everything else. The first impressions matter, but what actually happened is not known to the majority of people, and everyone has an opinion.
What you just described as the process. One day you'll be telling your grandchildren about that, and they'll be like, "You're kidding! You had to go through all that?"
Right. Yeah, just to co-sign what you guys are saying, I think that's always going to be important. Whenever anybody in the community is getting upset about these things, you got to remember, step back, take that 50,000-yard view, and realize that. AOL is not even out yet if you compare this to the internet boom. You know what I mean? Like we're still so early, and that's why things are so clunky. Things are clunky, things are messed up, and people who are a little bit more savvy are going to take advantage of all the loopholes that are still there because nobody really knows the proper way to do anything yet.
Yeah, I would push back on that, and nothing is clunky. It's just our understanding of it makes it complicated or not. So the lack of understanding, and I'm not better than anyone else as far as like saying this. I just, as you learn more, then the easier things become, and that's just in general. So I guess nothing, the way it is fantastic, right? If you learned how to use it and you took enough time, depending on your schedule, it wouldn't. You would hear someone saying something that possibly wouldn't make sense because they're just simply not understanding. But again, as we go on, none of these things that people are feeling, their emotions, and I couldn't get in on that token. There's going to be so many opportunities, and we're going to progress in such a fast pace, at such a fast pace that we're going to be just as we are now, just doing transactions seamlessly, just with one click instead of 5 different clicks, opening 3 different tabs. It's all going to be consolidated, and I much look forward to that going down the road.
I think that's the key right there. Is it'll get easier as they get better at it. The experience, the user experience will get a lot smoother, and that's going to enable the aunts and uncles and the grandmas to be able to get involved as well. It's going to get to that point eventually.
I'll share my BitConnect stories with my grandchildren.
I have some as well.
So, to keep up with this conversation, how do you think blockchain games can fully be decentralized? I skipped the question 4. There we go. Seeing as we're talking in this direction.
Well, I think it's going to be a combination of things. I mean, first of all, you got to have developers who are willing to release their game into the wild, as it were. That's always going to be your first problem with decentralization is, hey, I built this thing, it's my baby, and now I have to step back and give it up, and I'm not going to be willing to do that. And you see some devs that are already talking about that as in their initial phases of their games. I think Alluvium is one of them. And then you see some developers who aren't mentioning that at all, or are fully locked into always controlling their game. And that's going to be another issue. And then after that, you got to move to all your points of failure, right? So you got storage, where you're going to use nodes, or you're going to use Amazon. All those types of things are going to play in as well.
Actually, I think question 3 and 4 are really tied together. The need for a central database for blockchain, or can blockchain games be fully decentralized? I think the database itself is pretty much going to dictate the database, or the storage necessity, as was mentioned already, the needs for storage, and not the storage though, not just storage, the speed of access to that storage, right? I mean, that's the important part here. I mean, you're dealing with games that might require, fast access to its data, especially if you have, a giant universe that spans, a giant metaverse of lands, or whatever you want to call it, that you got to constantly loading and streaming data, right? From large MMORPG games, for example, like Mirandus, and you're not going to be able to pull all that data on and off the blockchain, right? In any reliable speed. That's why I believe they had a $10,000 prize to, I don't know if it was, I guess it was prize towards the person who gave the best, white paper or possible solution to how to do that on a blockchain, on a decentralized system. I believe Gala last year or some months back, posted that. I don't know what came of that afterwards, but which kind of led me to some of my own ideas, which we'll get to later on. But because I think it is very tricky, from a blockchain perspective. But that's why I strongly believe that the only way this is going to work is in a layer 2 type. I want to call it layer 2 because it might get confusing. We call it let's call it 2 different layers, general layers, right? Like you got a blockchain layer, and then you have a database layer, right? Not like your typical layer 2 blockchain, but just 2 general layers, right? There's the blockchain, and then there's the database. And I don't think we can get away from the database side of things that easily because of the sheer speed. Unless we can get it to some kind of staking model, where it's really fast, because I believe staking was meant to be fast. You don't have to have miners trying to do hashes and stuff like that. It's meant to be low power, right? High speed. Maybe some staking model might be able to help, but it's still going to be a bit slow because you still have to distribute that across multiple node owners, right? And you got to replicate that outwards, and which is not always an easy thing to do in high speed. It's just the nature of it. So I think there's just some physical limitations that makes it near impossible. It's like, hey, I want to fly, but I can't because I don't have wings. It's like I could jump in a plane, but I mean, there's only so much you can do, right? With what you have at your disposal, right? It's just, I mean, you're limited. I mean, unless we have quantum computing becomes a thing one day, like like everybody now has a quantum computer where we could do some quantum stuff, and then maybe blockchain becomes like breathing. It's like whatever. We'll store everything on blockchain, use quantum computers. But I mean, we're not there yet, right? So we have no choice but to, like me, I have to take a plane if I want to fly anywhere, right? Right? So I mean, it's just the nature of things as it is today. I don't think we're going to get away from a dual systems. There is going to be games that require databases, right? I know what Gala is trying to do, and Eric is a very good visionary on the whole thing, and I think he along with some others probably thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we had games fully decentralized? And I think they're being very smart about it by, for example, selecting games that you might be able to fully. Well, some games you might be able to completely get on the blockchain, but it would be like turn-based games, right? So I mean, the reason why Townstar is not made with Unity 3D, from what I got working with them all from last year up to now, is because it has the reason why it's in a browser, right? They wanted to connect it to a decentralized system and not have anything you download. You just open a browser, you load the game data and everything becomes almost decentralized. The data is stored in a decentralized ledger. Eventually, that's what they're trying to do, right? So they want the website, they want all the content for Townstar to be on a CDN, but it'll be the Gala Node CDN, right? Which they already have set up already, right? And so they already have it now today set up to store files through a special protocol, right? And that allows kind of like a node-based CDN, right? So one day, their goal is to have Townstar download all of its website and its game files and everything from the decentralized nodes, right? And then the reason, now if you notice, one of the problems they've been having is that it's based on a ledger system. There's no back-end server that runs the game, right? So if anyone's familiar with how a client, server works with games, you have a server that basically has the same code as the front end, but there's just no graphics or visuals, and it kind of has all the logic and it runs the game, and you're basically providing mouse and keyboard inputs to a server. That's what you are. You're just a mouse and keyboard input. The game renders locally, but really, you could easily cheat by hacking the game locally, right? So the game logic exists really on the server side, right? And it determines, if you really did shoot somebody or not, right? Authoritatively, I guess, and then that authoritative server sends that information back to the client, right? And then that determines, what's going on there, right? And so but with Townstar, there's no server, so that's why hacking was such a big problem. But since they launched it, because I remember, like, the first time we started seeing people's currencies in the 100 millions, and and just people jumping up and down the board, and they're all over the place, right? And this was long before Watchdog came in, because some people got savvy and started hacking the client side, and it was feeding across the entire board, right? And so they started creating Watchdog to watch the ledger. So the reason why they have to watch the ledger you can still do hacking in the game. Some minor things here and there. For example, you can create a sell script, which is very popular, and people use that for auto selling within the game, right? In Townstar, and so you see that they're trying to make the game decentralized by taking away the server part and having it run client side, and that poses another interesting risk of hackers, right? Because if you don't have an authoritative system, right? See, the blockchain was never meant to be a server, right? Sure, you can store data. You can store data. That's fine. Store data. Maybe one day the blockchain, is fast enough, maybe on a staking system that you can just store data. But what is that? That doesn't protect you from hackers, right? The authoritative system was designed to prevent hacking, right? In the sense that, you can't hack something on your local system because the server pushes the data to you, right? But if everything...
Right quick, GeneralFault, because you obviously know a lot more about blockchain than I do. This question from Panito, where he's saying, I think it's impossible to be fully decentralized because it's impossible to develop and keep a game running this way. So are you saying that you basically agree with this statement and it's not possible right now? Do you think it will be possible, or do you think it's not a thing to have a decentralized game?
I think it's a type of game. A decentralized MMORPG, no. A decentralized card game, maybe.
So a basic game, maybe. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, I can make a decentralized card game easily, right? Now, here's the thing, though, right? If it's decentralized card game, what's to prevent me from hacking the client if there's no server? Right? Nothing. So I can hack the card game. Nobody can stop me, except if they have some sort of watchdog watching what I'm doing. But, can they truly protect from every possible angle? From a client side, it opens a whole lot of doors to issues.
So I do have a question, I guess, with Bonify said, I'm not the most knowledgeable in all aspects of, I guess, how it all works when it comes down to the weeds of it. But if Gala mentioned specifically that they're trying to get their own blockchain, they want to build their own blockchain. So if the blockchain of Gala is going to be one that's immutable, because for every block that's minted, right, with all the transactions that take place, for Bitcoin, for example, the quantum computing, until that comes out, it's less likely that anyone could necessarily keep up with all the transactions to reverse the blocks back down to the first one that was ever created to then hack the whole ledger or blockchain of Bitcoin. So I'm just thinking, using that, correct me if I'm wrong, if there's a blockchain of Gala and we have transactions going in and out of them, and wouldn't it be secured as or in a sense decentralized fully if it's going to be on a blockchain as far as what's taking place in game, whether it's transactions from buying and selling or trading or swapping, if it's all going to be on a chain of Gala? instead of on these servers that have centralization components to them. Like how would that work? If you can elaborate, if you know any more on that. Just a question I had. Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. General, did you catch
Yeah,
that?
Yeah, can you maybe speak about that again? Maybe I didn't fully understand the whole thing. Yeah.
Sure. So did you hear me at all?
Yeah, I heard part of it. So
Okay, cool.
I think my system was cutting in and out there for a second. So try again. Yeah.
Okay, so briefly,
Sorry.
I was comparing the blockchain of Bitcoin and how it cannot possibly be hacked, for lack of better words, because for each block that's taking place, there needs to be a reversal of those all the way back to the first block. So the more blocks that are taking place, the less likely, and almost it's impossible at this point, for there to be any tampering with the blockchain. So if Gala is claiming and saying that they're working towards to have their own blockchain, then all transactions taking place would more or less secure the decentralized part of it becoming what they want it to be, right? Everything decentralized as far as transactions, I guess, is that separate from gameplay? Because if we're just talking about transactions, wouldn't a sword swing that killed the Minotaur be that of a transaction? Because now it's forever dead, and it's going to be minted as on X block on the timeline of the blockchain for Gala. So maybe if you could elaborate on maybe my lack of understanding when it comes to the difference of transactions as far as financial transactions are concerned with NFTs versus actions in a game that would ultimately become, I guess, blockchain transactions. I'm not sure if how would that work out?
Yeah, there are a lot of things. Actually, this has come up. Actually, I think Betbender's hit these same questions as well. Like when it comes down to blockchain from a technical perspective, you can store data that would normally take a while to store. Imagine, for example, you're back in the modem days. You have 14 kilobyte per second, transfer rates or something. It would take you an hour to download 1 meg or something like that. You're gonna have to pick your data, right? I mean, you're probably not going to have our MMORPG game, on a 14K modem or something. But what you could do is you could have, a game of cards, where the cards you own and the choice you make, right? You make one choice and you click a card. You pick a card. That card pick can easily be sent across in a few bytes to the other, to the other players. And you can easily play a card game. But if you're not going to constantly stream, where a player is and all the things that are happening, possibly in a large, 3D MMORPG game or something, or especially an FPS shooter might even be a better, like the amount of people running around, especially there's a lot of them, shooting bullets and, the response rate required, and especially to coordinate all that data. There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes, and especially if you got people nowadays talking and chatting, and so there's only so many things you can do quickly when storing on the blockchain. You got to think of the blockchain like the modems back in the old days, right? They're not quite up to like DSL speeds or cable speeds yet, or whatever, or fiber speeds or whatever. I mean, once you get there, sure. I mean, there's probably a lot you can do, but as it is right now, you have to pick the type of game you want to decentralize. And if you're trying to aim high, then you're going to end up with a hybrid solution. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry to jump in there and step on you, but I think this is what the solution that L2s are providing, whether it's Matic having their own Solidity. These are all different networks that have different speeds for all these transactions that take place. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone else knows, but from what I'm understanding is that the faster put through of transactions, the less likelihood that there can be someone who's fast enough to hack that current block and then retrace backwards to then try to compromise the whole blockchain of that, whether it's Solidity or Ethereum or Gala, for example. So I'm thinking if Gala's network is not going to be fast enough because there's such small space and only a card game could work on it, or a tanker shooter, we're not probably going to see any type of these large MMORPG games unless we wait, as we did for modems, to evolve to the point where we have that broadband. And what and just last point on this is just, it baffles me that there's companies building these types of games now on different. They're not starting from scratch. The wheel isn't broken per se, right? There's the companies with networks that have faster transactions that could take place, but Gala is going the route of creating it from scratch, from my understanding, and I guess that's what's going to kind of take longer for it all to come to fruition.
I like the fact that they're trying something new. I mean, it's you're not going to pretty much, I think, invent a new way of doing things if you don't actually, start doing it a new way.
Right.
I mean, you actually have to make a step and try something, and it may fall flat on your face. It may not end up being better than the one you already have, but at least you tried, right? And,
yeah.
One last quick question on this, General, before we move on, and you don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but what do you think? So, looking at like a game like Star Atlas, which before Star Atlas was even a thing, I was looking into Solana and understanding that it was supposed to be a super fast blockchain, right? So, where does that play in as far as your understanding, as far as how slow blockchain is? Is even a blockchain that's as fast as Solana supposed to be going to be a problem, or what do you think?
There are some blockchains that take a slightly risky corner to things.
Right.
And what they
With
do
the
is
history being risky.
No. I mean, they don't require like, any blockchain you take has confirmations, right? How many people have confirmed that. I mean, the nature of most blockchains follows similar patterns, right? Without even having to know any particular blockchain, I can already tell you that, one, it's a chain of blocks, and two, right, there's multiple people that have to confirm that this chain is correct, right? Most of them are on a, like if somebody owns 51% of the nodes in your environment, you're pretty much screwed, because that guy can easily hack your system and own everything, right? And that's, of course, one of the dangers of blockchain, is not having enough decentralized nodes to properly secure, but that's a whole other topic. But anyways, having these nodes, like we have, when blockchains when they come together, you really have to decentralize the blockchain a lot in order for this to work properly. Because in order to secure it, because if you don't have enough blockchains, you're gonna run into problems, right? As for speed of blockchains, you can, like, for example, let's say I have 1,000 nodes, right? I could decide that only 2 people have to confirm, and I can make my node system really fast, right? But is it secure, right? I can, maybe I should wait till at least 30 people have confirmed, right? To make it secure. You ever go to an exchange? They require like 20, 30 confirmations, right? But some sites, they're fine with 2 or 3 confirmations. They don't care, right? So, like, how many confirmations do you want to confirm that it's secure, right? That it hasn't been, circumvented in some way, right? So, yeah, I mean, there was one system in particular that said that theirs is so fast, they only need like 12 people to confirm, and then it goes from there or whatever. But, how secure is that really? If you put it under a microscope and really analyze the whole system, to only have 12 people confirming versus 30, right? Because here's the reality: you have to replicate it, right? And each replication's got to be confirmed. You can't just store arbitrary data that hasn't been confirmed, right? So, I mean, you're going to have a lot of people storing data that has to replicate out to thousands of people that have your nodes, right? You can't have one node, which is the fastest way to go about it, because then you're back to square one. It's centralized. It's a centralized database. It's basically what you have, right? In order to decentralize, you have to send data across to each and every person's computer who has a node across the world, and they all have to synchronize, and that takes time, right? And so to get 1,000 people all synchronizing for every single click and jump and key press and camera movement or whatever, you're going to have to pick and choose the data you send across that wire, right? So yeah, they're all the same.
That's awesome, man.
Gen-
Thank you. Before you go ahead, Banter. You got something?
Yeah, I was going to ask a question regarding, I guess, kind of the cheating aspect, right? So we talked about the centralized server, we've talked about decentralized and confirmations. Do you see a need or a potential for services like Punkbuster, who kind of monitor that first-person shooter play for cheating, to block them? Do you see there being an avenue or a business popping up around preventing online blockchain cheating in gaming?
Sorry, is that a question for me?
Yeah. Sorry, General, that was for you.
sorry. So your question was about, is there a way to prevent cheating in games?
Well, we have these other services in the non-blockchain gaming. One called Punkbuster. That's one that's probably the most popular. That kind of scans the gameplay and the network for signs of cheating. Do you anticipate that there'll be something that pops up in the blockchain space for gaming with play to earn?
I think, well, one thing you can't hack through a game is somebody's wallet necessarily, because you need to have the private key. So at least your wallet's safe. I mean, the most that they could possibly do is disrupt the game itself. You're not going to be able to steal anybody's NFTs. So, for example, Townstar, right? I have no issues, so I have no concerns that somebody is going to hack the game and steal my NFTs, because that's impossible. It's in my wallet, right? All they can do is disrupt the game and change ranks, for example, right? Or do things in the game that you couldn't normally do to get ahead. And of course, that could possibly be detrimental if you are awarding stuff, right? And then in the end, when you award stuff based on players' participations, it could see it in case of maybe you have like CryptoKitties, where you have like two things trying to mate and make other kitties or whatever. If somebody could circumvent that, on a client side only game, they could possibly speed up the process or multiply, because that system will, I think, after the process is done, will mint them, right? I think the fail points is going to be where you mint the items, right? When you start minting items, if you start minting items and sending them to people that shouldn't have them, that's where the point of failure is going to be, right? Because you can't undo that. You're screwed at that point. Especially, even if you send cryptocurrency between people in the game, the people in that game has to provide usually a passcode, right? But yeah, you could possibly mint and give rewards to people that have cheated in games. That becomes the main issue, I think, for client side, right? When it comes to that, and that's something that they would have to focus on protecting. And Gala did this with their ledger system, their watchdog system, right? And no, it's not perfect, but you probably get most of them. And as I believe Michael McCarthy has said, he's improving it, a weekly basis. They're always improving it, right? So, but again, it is client side, and there's always going to be those edge cases where you're not going to be able to capture all the time. Like, there's just so many different small variations. It's almost near impossible to detect. It's a whole other topic in itself when it comes to that. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of very smart people out there when it comes to certain things, and it's going to be hard to get all angles.
On that note, you're completely correct, because now with this, a more simpler understanding from your description. So thank you for enlightening us on that, or myself. So now that begs the question, or the statement, that other projects besides Gala Games are just on a level that is nowhere near where Gala is. And this is, I'm comparing and contrasting just based off the topic, because now if there's a mini game coming out that will have transactions, whether it's mining of resources in Star Atlas of a planet, or traveling, and all these things are happening on the mini game, that means that they more or less have the infrastructure that can deal with building it out at such a fast pace to come out with something, right? It might not be fully decentralized, like we just finished talking about, but I guess for the sake of the question, games could be decentralized, but nowhere near we're nowhere near that at this point. for the reasons we just talked about.
Yeah, again, you can have a decentralized game if it's a turn-based game.
Right.
Like for example, imagine XCOM. It's a popular Steam game. Where like you make a turn, and the next person does a turn, and the next person does a turn, and so on. Like you could possibly do turn-based, but again, you're going to have the logic client side, and then you're going to have to deal with cheating. You're going to have to deal with hackers trying to get ahead for that. And maybe, and I think maybe they tried to do it this way. I'm not certain with Townstar, but maybe having the browser itself become a node, right? Like the clients themselves become nodes, right? So that your browser and all the other browsers involved in the game become nodes, client-side nodes, right? And then those nodes interact with each other. And when one person makes a play and that gets sent out, and if he hacks, everyone else will say, hey, he doesn't jive with everyone else's data, and he gets banned or kicked or something, for messing with his data. So I mean, you could have client-side nodes, right, that work with server-side blockchain nodes, right? And so maybe that's the way to do it. But you're still going to end up with a turn-based game, not a real necessarily real-time game. But maybe there's a way to work real-time into all that. I don't know. At least from a small perspective, right? Like just somebody walking around in an open world and just where they happen to be every few minutes. Like it saves every so many minutes and where your location is and what items you have on you, and some simple stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But if the game ever resets, then it just goes back to where you were, or whatever items you had like 2 minutes ago. So it's like saving your Word documents, and computer crashes, you lose everything up to 5 minutes ago. Right? But at least you didn't lose everything. Yeah.
Before you move on, Ultra, I wanted to address my man Joe M from the comments. I thought this was the Mirandus Gentry. It is. You're absolutely right, sir. So we think that anytime you're talking about a game where people are investing thousands of dollars, I mean, you might want to know what's under the hood of that cart before you jump in there, right? So the blockchain and discussions of crypto, especially with people who are really intelligent, like GeneralFault here, is a thing of huge value to the community, and it's not something that you should probably underestimate too lightly. Also, according to your statement, as Ultra said in the beginning, I just want to reiterate for everybody to stick around. At the end of the show, we're going to have a surprise announcement for everybody, and we want you guys all to stay tuned for that. I'm sorry, go ahead, Ultra.
Nice.
Oh no, I was just going to say, talking about all of these nodes, server-side nodes, back-end nodes, client nodes. Would you mind talking a little bit about what nodes and mining in general, seeing as you also brought that up a little bit earlier with your I think you said your nephew?
Yeah, before you jump to that, I have one last thing I wanted to add to the whole central database, and also that last comment and how this is relevant to what we're talking about with Mirandus. So I don't know for those of you that keep track with how Gala is doing hiring, but if you go to Gala career section right now, there is an actual position that they're seeking for, which is Mirandus Senior Game MMO Network Engineer. And one of the first descriptions there, it says, lead the architecture design for a single shard MMO backend that minimizes transitional load times between regional areas and is capable of expanding the world map post-launch. So this ties directly into everything we're talking about with Mirandus.
Oh.
And with
Absolutely.
that, please carry on.
It's going to shape. In line with what you said, it's going to shape a lot of this. A lot of people are like, this actually comes back to how we started this whole talk in the first place. People don't really give a shit about the background, right? Like we don't care how it works. We just want to play the game, man. Tell us about what's in the game, what's going on. Yeah, like they want to talk about Mirandus itself, the game. So I mean, it's like people getting into crypto and don't want to know how their wallet works. Then when the computer crashes, they're like, "Damn it, where's all my currencies? My crypto, or whatever."
They just want the games.
Well, see, you didn't know how it works, so now you're screwed, right? Yep. So sometimes, ignorance is not always bliss when it bites you in the ass later, right? So, that should be a statement on her shirt somewhere. So
we're coming out.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, you have to be aware of how these things work, right? What can you expect from Mirandus when it launches, right? Well, if you understand how blockchain works, right? If you understand what you can do with blockchain, you'll know exactly what to expect, right?
Exactly.
And so, the fact that they have, everything working. Now, I'm going to talk. I'll just, since we're on the subject of Mirandus, and I know a lot of people want to hear about Mirandus, I'll get to that before the miners. So I'll just say this little spiel, I guess. But you look, when Mirandus comes out, there's going to be everything within a database system. That's what the whole sharding is about, right? They want to have networks, and they'll probably have multiple shards, all running different, aspects of the system, being able to handle multiple users. So you can only have so many users per shard, most likely, and you'll have like 1,000 people on this server and 1,000 people on that, whatever. It'll be whatever load balancing system they want to have set up. There'll be load balancing involved, and that'll be all on a central database. Probably the database itself too will be sharded or mirrored or whatever. And so they'll have that system set up. And then once that's in place, they'll be able to have multiple. You know what? I got to tell you, it's going to be almost a lot like World of Warcraft. And imagine if Blizzard just decided today, you know what? We're going to add blockchain to World of Warcraft. How would they do it? Right? They would add it as a separate layer. You have nothing in the game changes except now you have, maybe you go to the auction house and you can take your items and send them to a vault that gets minted and suddenly it's on the blockchain, right? If that happens, right, then it's not going to change the game. It's still going to be the game, right? The only difference, of course, is that Blizzard owns everything in the game, whereas with Mirandus, you can have deeds, and the players, own the auction house and own all the stuff that are in the game, right? They own. There's even talk about owning dungeons, your own caves and stuff, right? So that's Mirandus is going to probably be a lot like WoW, but obviously the graphics is going to be different. Yes, you'll own the deeds and all the buildings will be run by the players. But it's also going to be a lot. There's a lot of simulation involved, of course. Between, and I'm not saying stuff that people don't already know, right? There's going to be simulation between the animals, and you could wipe out a whole bunch of rabbits, and maybe the foxes start to starve, and they have to run to another part of the map where there's more prey, and suddenly there's no foxes anywhere to be seen, right, in that area, and that wreaks havoc on the whole, wildlife in the area, right? Everything changes, and you chop down a tree, that also, destroys wildlife, and that's going to be a very strong dynamic in Mirandus, but still, from the blockchain perspective, it's not going to be anywhere to be found like World of Warcraft, except for when you mint things outside, right? And so it's at that point you're going to need to know about, blockchains and stuff like that. But you don't need really to know about blockchain to play the game, but only if you want to trade your items and so I don't even know if they'll be trading inside the game. That would be interesting if you can trade inside the game, if you don't have to mint in order to sell your items. If you can make crypto in the game without actually having to mint outside, that would be interesting. Kind of like how you can get items in your chest, but you don't actually have them on the blockchain, but you still have Gala coins from your mining, your nodes, for example. Like I get nodes, and I get Gala coins in my chest. I have to mint those coins out, but I still have the coins, right? Maybe at one point, I always suggested, why not allow me to trade my chest items between other people that also have chests? Why not? Why can't I just send 100 of my Gala coins in my chest to another guy who also has a chest? Why not? Right? You could do the same thing in the game too, right? I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't. And then that other person at any point can mint that if he wants, right, on the blockchain. So
what's the point of minting then? If what you're saying is true, if you can just move from one treasure chest to another without minting, what would be the
ownership?
Point of minting?
Ownership,
right.
Because
it wouldn't be yours.
Yeah, I mean, if a nuclear bomb went off and wiped everything out, then you basically be screwed, right? Because all your stuff would be gone, right? Yeah. I mean, it's if every server in that vicinity and all surrounding towns that might have had backed up hard drives was all somehow wiped out from major events and started happening all at once, right? Then it wouldn't be decentralized around the world. It'd be kind of localized data backups, and that would be lost, and all your stuff would be lost, right? Decentralized.
If a nuke went off, I'd say hashtag least of my worries.
That's the least of your worries. Exactly.
I want my items on my hardware wallet, on my MetaMask. Hurry,
but crypto might increase. You never know. So Bitcoin flies up. Who knows? Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, the economy tanks. but yeah, I mean, so that's that's it. But that brings me to the the nodes. I think you asked about nodes running miners. Is that the other question?
Oh yeah, the other half was just what are nodes and then what's mining. Just
there
just
it is
a
on the
quick
screen. Yeah. So what is a node and what is mining? Some people might find that confusing because Gala calls them nodes, right? And in the blockchain world, they're called miners, but they're also called nodes. But I guess I like to think of it more like a miner is the person, right? And a node is the software, right? Just to clarify that. So if you have a software node, right, then all of those nodes think of like multiple lines. Think of multiple circles on a sheet of paper, all connected by lines, right? And every one of those circles are all nodes that are speaking to each other, right? And you don't have one node in the center with all the other nodes connected, right? You'll have multiple nodes and multiple other nodes connected off those nodes, and not every node has a list of necessarily every other node, right? Like one node may only have 10,000 connections to 10,000 other nodes, and every node only needs up to so many connections of other nodes. You don't necessarily need to have every single node, right? Although that could also be the design. So a node is basically a software that runs on a computer, whether it be Gala's GUI-based node or most nodes in the blockchain world over the last few years have always been console-based nodes, right? Run on like Linux or Windows DOS or whatever, just command line related. For those who knows what command lines are, so these are just programs that run in the shell pretty much, and they basically just have textual outputs. There's no graphical user interface for these. Now Gala created theirs with Node.js, I believe, because I saw, or with V8. So interestingly enough, I think they kind of started with something console related and then kind of added a GUI on top of it, from what it seems like. But in the end, it's basically all the same. It's just a software that runs on a computer that communicates with all the other software running on everyone else's computer, right? This is why you should not have multiple nodes on a single machine. Can you imagine if I put like 1,000 nodes on one PC? That's not decentralized. I just centralized 1,000 nodes on a single computer. That's one point of failure, right? The point of decentralization is to prevent points of failure, right? And so you need to have multiple machines, and even having them in one house. Like I have 5 nodes from Gala, right? And I have them all in my house. So if my house burns down, the nodes are gone. Well, the ownership of the nodes are not gone, mind you, right? But the data that are stored on those nodes is gone. Those nodes, whatever data on the ledger that they had stored and cached locally, that's all gone, right? But that's not a big deal because I can just, go to another location and, fire up 5 new instances, 5 new PCs, whatever, and then it'll download and synchronize that data and we're back up. That's the whole point of being decentralized, right? So that is what a node is. A node is a software that one person, you typically run on one machine. You can have multiple machines, but that doesn't make it decentralized until multiple individuals around the world start to install that node. And those nodes speak to each other. That starts creating a decentralized environment. So, yeah, and mining is, speaking on the mining side of things, that's what a node is. A node is software running a machine. So what is mining? That's another little question, but basically there's 2 types of ways you got to view mining. There's not just one style of mining, right? Because you have both proof of stake and proof of work.
Proof of work.
Yeah, and so the proof of stake and proof of work are the 2 concepts right now, right? And so with proof of work, everybody knows that from way back in the beginning. And basically, it's just you're running, the node will receive some work, and it's that's the best way to say this. Let me split this out now. I'm getting ahead of myself. There is a difference between miners and nodes, and I probably should clarify this. Let me give an example. Miner myself, as a miner using proof using ASIC miners. Let me start with that. I have ASIC miners, application specific integrated circuits, ASIC. If you don't know what they are, just look them up on YouTube. ASIC. Now they connect to a node system. Right? Actually, they connect to a pool, and that pool will give it some work to do. Right now, my miner is not a node itself. Right, that's not a node. It connects to a pool. Right, and that pool eventually connects to a node. Now, that makes me a miner. What makes me a miner is either if I have a GPU running software or these miners. What they do is they accept work, and that work basically says, we want to get a hash value that looks a certain way. Like it starts with 1 zeros or 2 zeros or 3 zeros or 4 zeros on the left side of this hash, right? The more zeros it starts with, the harder it is to generate. And you basically have to run through a whole bunch of permutations using a nonce value. So you try it with the number 0, you try it with the number 1, you try it with the number 2, and you keep going up until you find a hash. It's a string of this. What is the hash? A hash is a string of letters and numbers, right, of a certain length, right? And what happens is it needs to start with, I believe it's usually 120. Anyways, it starts with a few digits, like it starts 1 0 or 2 zeros or 3 zeros or 4 zeros. I believe it's 128-bit, I believe, hash, if I'm not mistaken. It has to start with a certain number of zeros. It's easy to find a hash that starts with 1 0, but it's harder to find a hash that starts with 2 zeros and harder with 3 zeros and 4 zeros. All a node miner does is it literally tries millions and millions and millions and millions of these values, to try to find out what that equation is. And when it finds that value that is accepted by the pool, then that pool receives that information, and then you get, for example, one Bitcoin, right? But it's very, very difficult for you to do that. This is why pools are invented. And so when mining, right, mining, you can basically have a large number of people that come together, right, and they all basically are selling hashing power. So I don't know how many people know about solar panels. Most people think that you get a solar panel attached to your house, and your house takes some of that power, and then the grid, you get the rest from the grid, right? That's not normally how it works. How it works is, you could do that, but how most people, at least that I know, do it is they sell it back to the power company.
To the power company,
right? So
yeah.
Exactly. So a lot of you probably might know this already, but the power company, you basically will give you a discount on your electric bill by selling the electricity back to them, right? Because that's just that way. It just makes it easier. You just have the one bill to deal with, and you're just pulling from one current, and you're just basically attaching your solar panels to the grid, right? And the company will give you a discount, right? You don't have to worry about anything else. You just got a fixed discount, and you're good. So that's basically using that. Sorry, did somebody want to say something?
No, I was gonna say. So is that how pretty much how the hash pooling works? Is where they just work together, and then that's how they pretty much officially work together. They work faster, so they get that little discount or that Bitcoin.
Yeah. And I'm a big fan of multi-coin pools. The reason why is because they automatically select the most profitable coin, and I'm connected to all my ASIC miners are connected to those. Well, I don't have a lot of them. I got 5 ASIC miners, but they're all connected to the pools. And Pyrocoin's been pretty good lately for whatever reason, but a lot of other coins have been pretty up and down depending on the market. But yeah, it selects the coin, and I go on there from time to time. I can see what coin is currently profitable, and they usually pay out after a certain amount, like $20 or 30, 40, whatever the pool that you're on is. And when it passes a certain threshold, you get paid in Bitcoin. So it doesn't matter what the coin is. It could be Litecoin or Gala coin, Ethereum coin. It doesn't really matter. Pyrocoin, it doesn't care. It pays you in. I don't care. It pays me in Bitcoin. Every couple days I get my wallet. I'm with ShakePay. I'm in Canada, so we use ShakePay. Well, I think there's a couple others, but I've been kind of liking ShakePay. And like ShakePay sends me a notification on my phone. You have incoming deposit every couple of days, right? Which is pretty cool. So maybe it's about $150 worth, $100 depending on the current market, which isn't too bad. And but yeah, so that's what happens, right?
All right.
I'm selling it to the pool, right? And the pool recognizes my contribution. And even if my miners don't mine a cryptocurrency, if I don't get that hash, that number that the pool is looking for, they still reward me for my efforts because I still told the pool which series of numbers to ignore, right? So they don't have to try those, and so that saves everyone else time, and then I get paid for it, right? No, that's either that or wait 6 months to hit it rich, and if you might hit it every 6 months or so, and rather than every couple of days. So
when I think of nodes and mining, it kind of pulls me back to, you remember the early days of PlayStation when they had the SETI project. And so they were utilizing processing power resources on all of these PlayStations, which were essentially a node. And in some ways, they were really kind of doing a form of mining as well, because they were using them in the processing power to kind of sift through data looking for anomalies.
Yes, exactly. In that case, they'd be miners. Exactly. Now, these would be miners. Then there's the backside of this is there are nodes that people run to secure the blockchain. And the mining pools work with those nodes, and the mining pools connect the mining hardware, whether it be GPUs, on a Windows or Linux system, or maybe it's ASIC miners. They usually connect to a pool. You can actually download a node and run nodes on your system, right? But it could get costly if you're dealing with some nodes usually require certain costs, especially if you're doing, that brings us to the whole proof of stake, right? If you're doing proof of stake, you don't have any of these miners required, right? Proof of stake doesn't require mining. You don't have to go through millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of hashes, right? Proof of stake basically is you're staking a large amount of typically the node's currency, native currency, right? Down on the node, and like Cardano, I believe is something that's been trying to be a competitor to Ethereum, I guess, right? And Cardano is one that has nodes that you can download. I believe it's a proof of stake. They're trying to be the first proof of stake to Ethereum before Ethereum gets to 2.0, I guess. And they're already well ahead of the game, and they already have proof of stake nodes, right? And so you can install. I've actually tried that myself in their test system. I had one of their nodes installed just as a test. And I was running it, and it just runs in the background. That's it, right? And it's just like a command shell, just a command window, a software that just runs in the background, and it connects to all the other nodes that are running, right? And what happens is I get paid gas fees, right? So I'm not a miner anymore. Now I'm just providing a node and getting paid in gas fees. And so miners get paid in hash power, right? And node owners get paid gas fees. That's the difference.
So,
right?
So how would this run in how would nodes, and seeing as proof of stake and the mining, how would nodes be needed in blockchain gaming?
Proof of stake is probably better for games because you don't have to wait so long to, you're talking about, you're down to seconds, if not fractions of seconds you're down to fractions of seconds for storing data. And probably you're talking about at least a few seconds for confirmation. I don't think I think if proof of stake becomes more of a thing than proof of work, you're going to start seeing, the environment is going to like you better, right? You're not going to be burning so much electricity. It's going to be easier on the environment. If Bitcoin ever moved to, proof of stake system, I could definitely see Elon Musk totally, and other big corporations that have hangups because of the environment, getting on board with it more. Maybe they may even have better acceptance in the future by certain things, people, corporations. But definitely, I see the gaming industry being able to be more decentralized, but you're still going to have that bottleneck preventing full decentralized games. That bottleneck is always going to be there short of quantum computing. And even with quantum computing, that would have to be quantum networks.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have the fastest computer in the world and still be bottlenecked by your fiber optic cables or something, right? And how can you go faster than the speed of light? I don't know, unless you can somehow teleport data from one machine to another through some quantum teleportation.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just like science fiction, right? And we're not there, so you're going to be it doesn't matter how fast the computer is. You're dealing with networks and replication of data, and that's going to be slow. But proof of stake is a step in the right direction to better decentralized games than proof of work because it's faster.
So what does the Gala game nodes do?
Gala game nodes,
like I think right now it's proof of work, correct?
actually,
or is it?
way back in day one, I think they had an experimental nodes. The first few nodes actually used the Monero network and a few others, and they were mining crypto in the background, which was interesting. And so your nodes were actually mining. You were actually mining other node crypto, and I think the original idea was that they could somehow pay back the node owners for creating. Anyway, so that was a whole interesting take on it, but I think they got away from that, and they started to change the nodes to be more like literally their own nodes. And you have to buy. I think it's more proof of stake. I don't know. I think it's more proof of stake because you have to buy a node, and you don't have to. And I'm not getting paid in gas fees, but I do get Gala for running the node. I'm rewarded by Gala for running my node, and those nodes, if I run them for 6 hours a day, I get awarded some Gala coins. That is not a gas fee per se. I'm not getting. If I was paid per transaction, then every game that comes on there, I'd want more and more games because more transactions means I get paid more. But that's not the case. I would consider it proof of stake because you have to buy a node for like $10,000 now, or is it $12,000? Oh, it's gone up now. And before you can start making money off it, and that's basically a proof of stake model almost, right? Yeah.
It's like a hybrid.
Yeah, it's kind of, they're trying to do something new, so it's kind of hard to classify it. But I wouldn't say it's proof of work, because proof of work basically means that, I have to, I guess, accept a transaction, add it to the ledger based on some work that I have to do. But I don't think the nodes do work. They accept, the nodes basically receive a, they receive communication from other nodes, and the nodes have to all agree on this in some way. I can't really speak to exactly how they constructed the node, just from how I've used the node and from talks and things in the past. But it does seem more like a proof of stake model to me, anyway.
And then this question just goes out for everybody else, because I don't know what games you're currently playing, GeneralFault, but the other blockchain games and the other environments that they're being built on, what do you think they're using? What do you think would be best for them? So like we have like Star Atlas coming out, which is the bigger of the games coming out currently. What do you think would be best for them, seeing as they're on the Solana network?
Well, speaking of any game at all, period, I guess we kind of touched on that earlier as well. It really comes down to the type of game, right? I mean, any high-paced, high-action game that requires, that has a lot of things going on, you're going to have to pick and choose the data you want to persist, right? I mean, what exactly do they want to put on the blockchain, right? I mean, it's the blockchain. First of all, each block on the chain is limited to how much data. Have any of you guys ever heard of Pixel Chain?
Yeah.
I know this Pixel Chain that came out, and I was actually one of the first few artists as well that joined that. I have a bunch of them. I actually sold one for like $200-$300. One of them there just a few weeks ago. But I was one of the first 100 people to post. Actually, I think I even have one of the first 20, 30 images on that. I was invited to be one of the first few handful of testers before they launched. And it's interesting because the way it's designed is that the pixels on that, there's a limited amount of pixels data you can store on a block. And so they're storing all the pixels. That's why it's called pixel chain. They're storing all the pixels on the chain. So literally you've immortalized that that image on the blockchain for forever, for as long as Ethereum is a thing. And it's not going anywhere. It's stuck there now, right? And so, for better or for worse, whether I like my pictures, oh, damn, I should change that next. You can't. It's done. It's there, right? But that's the thing. You can store a limited amount of data on the blockchain, right? You can't store gigs of data on the blockchain, right? So the amount of data you store is going to dictate what is going to change your strategy, your solution to how your game functions, right? It's like, I'm also a game developer in the past. I've dabbled in more of from a hobby perspective, and I have a subscription to Unity 3D. I've done a lot of 3D programming. I've been modeling and programming and everything, music composition. I basically jack of all trades, so I could do it all. But the thing is, with Unity, right? You have a certain tool set at your disposal, and you should work within that tool set. And if you try to do something outside that tool set, you're going to find resistance, right? Because it's not designed to do that thing, right? And so that doesn't mean necessarily you can't do it, but the more you try to go outside the boundaries of what it's designed to do, the more resistance you're going to find, pushing back, right? And blockchain is like that. So, the more they try to push things on the blockchain that shouldn't be there, the harder it's going to be for them, right? And the worse it's going to be for the gamers because they're going to get frustrated, right? And so you got to find that middle ground, right?
I have a question with regard to that. Are platforms, 3D building worlds like Unity, are they developing as a platform with blockchain consideration in mind?
No.
Yeah. Interesting.
However, they probably don't need to because their system is fully modular, and you can go to the Unity asset store, right? You can download libraries that basically extend the platform. So I already know for a fact that Engine Wallet has a library on the Unity system that will allow you to automatically plug your game into blockchain. So I mean, by now, I haven't checked recently, but that was last year. But I know recently there's probably other solutions as well that will allow you to connect to blockchain.
So that would suggest that because they have such a plug-and-play environment, that the more that blockchain and 3D world development comes together, that will bring a lot more developers to the space, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and I was very disappointed that Engine was the only solution last year, but I really hope this year there are other solutions, so it's not just tied to one particular company or group rather. So I would like to see just a general. Well, the thing is, people have to design these things, and they want to get paid for it. And Unity Asset Store, you can't get paid for your assets, right? Like if you create an asset and you can get paid for that asset, I think Engine provides it for free. And I would like to see other organizations. I've just never had time to do it myself, but it'd be nice and maybe one day I will, right? I have other projects on the go, and maybe I'll create one if nobody else does. But it would be nice to have a solution that I could just plug into my Unity game and connect to a wallet. Connect to the blockchain. But here's the real question, though. Some people will be asking, which blockchain, right? Are we going to, is it going to be proprietary to Ethereum blockchains, right? Is there a possible solution to have multiple blockchains? My guess on that would be it would be nice to have multiple blockchains, but maybe each blockchain group can look into creating a solution for their particular system, because not every system of nodes is going to be necessarily operating under the same protocol. So you might have to change the strategy between the different blockchains. So yeah, that's going to be interesting. The interoperability between blockchains is a whole other topic itself, right? Because right now, they're talking about Flare network for Gala's trying to embrace the Flare network, but now there's the Binance chain, right? And so now they have the Gala chain. So which chain? It's just going to be multiple blockchains. Now they're going to support them all, but that just makes it further complicated to people onboarding. They're like, okay, now I have a wallet, so now which blockchain are we on?
Right.
Where's my wallet? Which blockchain is my wallet on? Damn it!
And then
I
with
don't even know.
And then with the transaction layer of blockchain, I mean, I imagine that's a thing. Like, different blockchains will have different capacities for transactions, because even though when we think in terms of something being able to handle like 50,000 transactions a second, you have a massive world that may not be able to completely accommodate that. So is that also going to be like a bottleneck?
Sorry, come again. You're on my. Sorry, I was cutting in and out there. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm asking if the transaction capacity of certain blockchains is also going to be a bottleneck for game development.
Yes, yes, definitely. I think I touched on this earlier as well. The network connections between. Well, first of all, it determines. You got to select the number of confirmations, right? Like, if you're a exchange, you probably want like 20, 30 confirmations, right? I mean. Otherwise, and I'm always sitting around a long time waiting for anything going in and out of an exchange. And so, how fast really is determined by the confirmations, right? And, you have to spread that data out to, it goes to one person and it goes out to multiple people, right? And then it spreads out from there and spreads out from there. You also have to be like, how it works too can be tricky. Like, imagine if you send the first transaction to a single person, right? That's one point of failure, because that one person can change the data, right? So maybe you blast the message out to 12 people, right? As long as those 12 people are not all on the same computer, right? You at least increase your chances that you're 12 different people, right? Maybe 6 of those people are on one computer. You can hack 6, but the other 6 are on different machines, right? But maybe I should broadcast it to 30 people or 100 people or 1,000 people. Like, how many people is the initial broadcast going to? Right? I mean, you got to split the data. You got to broadcast it to someone. It's got to replicate outwards. It takes time.
In a strange game experience way of understanding that, imagine you're in a party and you're out in a dungeon somewhere, and you have your potions. Let's say a potion is an NFT that's on chain, and you're trying to pass that to someone. It's like the dude's health is draining. Sorry, dude, we're waiting on confirmation.
Yeah, which chain is it on, right? It's like, like the potion's in a wallet on one of the dozens of chains that Gala supports.
That's hilarious.
God knows, yeah. So in some ways, yeah, I don't know. It can get confusing, but ultimately, I think it comes down to the same thing we touched on earlier. They shouldn't care. Right? They really shouldn't care. Like in the game checks all the chains. It finds it, says this person owns this item, right? And when you're minting, you decide which wallet and chain you're on, I suppose. But to the game, as to who owns it, it's abstracted, right?
Yeah,
so at that point, it wouldn't matter so much. But the replication could take time. That's always a frustrating part. But on proof of stake, I see this as being less of an issue. I think the how it gets added to the ledger across multiple nodes is much many magnitudes faster. Yeah, definitely under proof of stake. I possibly even seen the gas being much lower because the throughput is faster. The gas typically goes higher when you start queuing up transactions, and so I think it'll be lower because it goes through faster, but you're still going to have lag. Right, but it just will be lower, which means you could probably do a few more things than you normally could have. So, yeah, and RPG, I could see that being a thing. Definitely RPG games. I mean, there's not a lot of basic RPG games is about which creature you've killed or what items you own, right? Where you happen to be in any given moment. I could definitely see like basic data like that being stored on proof of stake system. Yeah, for those type of games. Yeah, when the time comes.
General, you talked a little bit about developing projects, and if we think about play-to-earn gaming and people like yourself who have the understanding of how to interface with these systems, what type of projects or work do you think the third party will start developing in support of these games? So, for example, if you think about Mirandus, what would you build on the outside of the game to help support your gameplay or help somebody else within the game?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Because there's this application that I've been working on over the last few years, and I'm going to take that as an example because, given myself, I could qualify as a third party. I run a company for healthcare, for the local healthcare in Toronto GTA area, right? And so what happens is that the hospitals that are here, we deal with tools not blockchain related. Right now, because the company was before I got into this, like we started back in 2008, right? And so I programmed a lot of software that runs within these companies. But I find running my own company, I haven't been able to find a good solution to manage my portfolios, the software, the tickets, the support, stuff like that. When I got into the crypto world, right, I had the similar issue. Now I'm moving my company to start, getting involved in blockchain, cryptocurrencies, stuff like that. And a lot of the things like the ASIC miners, right, where those are investments from the company. That's how I got those. There's other things that I've gotten. I just recently got put together a 32-core FedRipper system with, in order to do some more advanced research in artificial intelligence. That'll be coming to some things I'm doing as well. But everything I do keeps coming back to the fact that I need to track progress. I need to track the projects themselves, and I sometimes I do estimates and invoices, and I need to move line items around, and there's certain things I need to do that I have tried dozens and dozens of solutions over the years, and I haven't found one that works for me. And now, when I came to the cryptocurrency side of things, it got worse because I don't find any project management ERP solutions for that, right? So, for example, Mirandus is going to be a business to me, right? Because, and not just to me, but to everybody. People aren't spending, thousands and thousands of dollars on Mirandus items because, hey, I want to have a cool looking, house in Mirandus so I can go around, shooting orcs or whatever. Like that's, they're not going to spend, like maybe some will, but some people who are investing in Mirandus, I can say investment here.
Yes.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, but they are investing, and it's, come on, let's get real, right? I mean, that's, people do that because it's a business. So if I want to run my business, what do I have to report to the tax man, right? I was going to mention this earlier. Yeah, he's happy you're on blockchain because right, because it's just easier to track you that way, right? I mean, you have a point of entry like my ShakePay, for example, in my case, right? Then they can track all my ShakePay has to report to the government, right? Especially all transactions over $5,000, right? And so that all gets reported, and so they can easily track all the wallet transactions going outwards to all the other wallets, right? So I mean, in any case. So sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Specifically to developers making something to interact with play-to-earn gaming. So what kind of products do you think people will be making?
Yeah. So thank you. So sorry, I tend to go down rabbit trails. Project management software. I was trying to create something for myself. It was called Plan Smart. It was designed to implement an AI type project management solution to work with your portfolios, with your software and stuff like that. I have been creating a backend, which is currently the base for the Havens bot. So the Havens bot, Haven has its own custom bot, and a lot of the technology will be used. And I'm already working on the UI part as we speak for this project management solution. We had a prototype last year. It was not blockchain related. I'm revamping the whole thing to support that this time around. The idea is that you will be able to connect it to your wallets, to projects, to your, like Mirandus, for example, You can see all your Mirandus properties, maybe track how much a particular property or deed is making. You can do all of these things in the project management side of things, right? And so that comes back to like, how can third parties support blockchain? That's kind of like what the question was, I believe, right? And so, project management solutions that help to support and track portfolios and NFTs and working with the finance side of things, because I have to report my taxes, right? And anything that helps me manage my business around NFTs, because to me it's a business, right? Maybe not to everybody, but to me, blockchain is a business now, right? The NFTs I have, it's a business. Now, mind you, I'm a gamer. I love playing games, right? But hey, if I could do business and play games at the same time, why not? Right? And if I can have programs that can help me do that, then that's a big plus. So I think, tools that can help me manage my NFTs and blockchain portfolios and stuff from a business perspective would also help other companies on board as well. So that's why I'm hoping that my ERP solution will help other companies other than myself, right, to come on board and perhaps run the blockchain side, and keep track of it properly.
Seems to me a lot of that data could also be used to help their back end as far as running their economies, right? There's going to be dashboards and ways that they look for imbalances. Absolutely. And I think obviously companies are going to do that, but it seems to me an enterprising third party could do the same and sell that data as a service to people who are playing the game.
Exactly. And actually, I know one other person, I don't know if they want me to mention them or not, or the company they're working on, and they actually have devices all over the world that generate data from the environment, and this data can then be sold by different companies or organizations to other people that want it, right? And they can purchase it using crypto and stuff like that. So there could be ways for data to be shared across, and I believe this is even like natural resource-based information across the world, right? To different organizations, and it could be another way for companies to make money by sharing data, on blockchain or secured by blockchain, tracked by tokens. Yeah.
With your understanding of how to interact with these games using third-party tools, do you anticipate that there'll be people who develop products that give people a competitive edge, kind of in the pay-to-earn side? So instead of me going and trying to figure out, the best resources to buy, the best blueprints to make, things like that, I can just log into my program that GeneralFault's made for me that allows me to just say click, 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 and now I know I'm going to maximize my returns based on the data that's coming in.
I'm not sure I got that question properly.
Yeah, so the question is, do you anticipate that somebody like yourself or other developers would be able to make tools that allow a player to maximize their returns? So it automatically, you log into the tool for the day, and it allows you to say, okay, I need to focus on this resource.
So where I'm hoping, that's one of the reasons why I'm building this, because, for example, I have probably thousands of NFTs. I've got hundreds of sandbox lands. I've got lots of Mirandus stuff. And back in the day, Avastars, I think they're still a thing now. I got tons of Avastars. I've got a whole portfolio, and they're like all over the place. And most of the time, I don't even visit them. And I don't even know what I don't even remember what the initial investments were anymore. I don't even know where that sheet is. I think I lost the sheet and I can't find it. So, but I have some of the more recent ones, right? So, and because it's, I don't know, it's just, things get missed. It's like I like a central place where I literally I can pull all my stuff, right? I might have to go through and pull pricing. Data from exchanges to find out like what the rate was that particular day, to try to guess perhaps what my initial investment was on that item, and then cross-reference when the item was, and at least I'll know the Ethereum, how much the Ethereum amount was, not necessarily what the Ethereum to USD exchange rate was, right? So that's the thing I would have to look up, and then of that particular day to find out what because I would have probably transferred Canadian, converted it to Ethereum, and then I need to know what that Canadian Ethereum transfer rate is at that particular day to find out what my initial investments were, right? These are things I want to put into the software, and so that I can see, okay, you bought this item for $100, and now it's worth $2,000, or whatever. Do I have it on OpenSea or not, or some other sites? Like, is it integrate with OpenSea's API, right? Maybe in some way that allows me to track what's been sold or not sold, like what my current value is. There is a couple other sites I think that try to do this as well, but it's still not to the level of detail that I want to run my company. For example, to be able to put to-do lists, tickets, and things against like invoices and estimates if I need to against NFTs. But now, because of Haven, I have a different perspective to things now from a game team perspective. So I have team members coming after me saying, hey, how can we best manage their teams in Townstar and other games like Mirandus and stuff? When we come together, how can we manage that as a team? So I've decided, hey, why not have team projects, right? Or a way to manage teams. Maybe it's instead of projects, I have a whole section of the planning ERP system called Teams, right? Where you can literally have multiple teams, and you can track members of your team and how much money owed to that team member, stuff like that. So I mean, being able to manage teams in games could be a big use for third-party tools as well.
What about
that? Definitely would be useful.
Yeah. What about, and one of the ones that I think will probably be one of the lower hanging fruits would be tools that look at marketplaces, so you could do market arbitrage, between things that are in demand, things that are selling, when to hold out on stuff, things like that. Basically, sure. Telling you how to leverage the market. Yeah,
I got a whole bunch of notifications from OpenSea that was trying to sell. Sorry, that said I had bids on my sandbox lands, and they came in so fast, and my box is filling up. I'm like, there's no way humanly somebody's doing this. So somebody's writing a script, and they're automatically putting bids, and I think it's based on the location of where you are, based relative to key locations. The bid amount keeps going up and down, right? And people keep adding and canceling bids on them so fast. It's automatically scripted. It's obviously scripted. So I think people are doing it already, but it's custom, and I don't think and definitely I can see third-party solutions offering arbitrage between these things, right? Buy low, sell high. But again, once you open it up to the world, everybody's doing it. You lose the advantage yourself, right? So, yeah. So I see question 9. I don't know. Does anyone else have anything else to say to that? I want to jump the gun.
No, you did great. Thanks for sharing everything that you've been involved in. You currently are building.
So the and that's all on my Haven site. I'll be giving updates to that as well as we go forward, and to help with all of that. Now the blockchain. I don't really have the name. I don't really know what to call it.
Not my fault.
It the Haven chain. No, it's fine. You can leave it as because we don't really have GeneralFault's blockchain. We've been calling it the Haven chain.
Okay.
But we don't really know what to call it, so it's fine. But it's more of a brainstorming idea, similar to what Gala did. Gala, I don't know, potato. But I think it's Gala, right? Yeah, Gala. Yeah. So Gala, when they were trying to create the node, they were doing experiments and things, and got them to where they are today, right? And so one of my pet peeves with the blockchain was salinity. Why do I have to learn another language, right? I mean, I've probably forgotten more languages than I know now. Like, there's a lot of them that I know how to write in, and there's other ones that have come and gone in the past. But the thing is, like, there's so many languages, and one of the common ones is JavaScript is already well known, right? And we have Node, we have Node.js that could easily create cross-platform JavaScript nodes, and I believe a lot of nodes have been written in Node.js or in Node. I think even it uses the Google V8 engine, which is really fast. It compiles the machine code and runs it locally. And this is called JIT compiling. And so I believe Gala is using V8 as well for their system, for their nodes, right? So I thought to myself, what if I wrote my own node, right? And then I got thinking, well, if I write my own node, I'm going to need a blockchain for the node. The node itself is just one part of a larger whole, right? The blockchain is a concept. The node itself is the implementation, right? If you want to think of it that way. So I started on a white paper, which is not completed, and it was just a way to use JavaScript instead of Salinity. I'm exploring ways of using JavaScript in an isolated environment, right, like an isolated worker or process spin-off from Node, to see if I can have JavaScript itself run and then charge based on how long that runs. So, it'll track how many milliseconds passes, and then you charge based on how long that script is running, right? And if it runs too long, you just terminate the node process, right? And then you'll have a bunch of processes that might be running. It could be hundreds or thousands, but each one takes a particular script to run and runs it, right? And then, so there's a lot of things. Oh, and the other thing too is we have Uniswap, right, that deals with exchanges. I thought it would be kind of cool to have a built-in exchange as part of the node itself, right? So the node would support multiple currencies, right, and have a built-in exchange as part of its overall operating process, right? So I thought was kind of interesting. And I was looking at ways of using it as a database system for storing, but that got very complicated very fast for the same reasons we talked about earlier, right? So it's going to be down to, which kind of games. You're going to have to select the type of game that you want to put on it, right? So that's the thing I'm looking for. The main concept here is not having Solidity can be complicated, and then even for somebody as myself who's gotten into it, there's a lot of quirks. For example, I believe when I was playing around with it, they suggest there's a certain way to deal with numbers that you should import, I think, certain existing code, library of code to deal with math so that you don't do it wrong. Which means if you go straight at it, from scratch without knowing these things, you can end up with something that's not secure, right? And that could be a point of failure there unless you're well trained, right? And I mean, it's hard enough learning Solidity than to learn all the quirks that you have to learn as well on top of it. So I just turned me off entirely. So, I mean, if I have to do it, I will, and probably will have to at some point. But so I've been kind of training myself in that over the last year. But I thought, hey, why not use what already exists? I mean, a lot of people, especially coming out of colleges, universities, know JavaScript, right? That could actually increase the adoption, right? I mean, if more people can create their own contracts in JavaScript, deploy it with such ease. I mean, just imagine the ability to integrate it on server sides and all around the globe in existing third-party solutions. And integrate using, you already have JavaScript front end, and now with Node.js you can have it on the back end. Why not have it on the blockchain? Like, why not? Why not have it everywhere? Right? Have a seamless interoperability between the multiple platforms. Right? I mean, why not? Right? So this blockchain is to answer that question. Is it possible, right? Can we have a blockchain that basically supports JavaScript, like Node.js, like, client, like all the browsers in the world, and literally bridge that gap and make it seamless, and that would be, I think pretty cool. And I'll probably create some games off of that too once it's done. I was thinking of creating my own version of a few games one day when it comes down to it. And somebody had mentioned, why don't you create it on your own blockchain when it's ready? I'm like, hey, it's a good idea. So, yeah, I might hold off and just try that. So we'll see. So that was the idea behind it.
Nice.
Experimental. And I'll be making updates on that too. Again, right now on my Haven Discord server. And again, I'm just trying to. I need to finish the white paper rather. So a lot of things to consider when doing this. So, and security, right? Security is a big important part of this. So, and making sure that when that initial transaction goes out, right, and how many people receive it, and how secure is it going to be, and is there a way for me to prevent 20 people from putting it on one computer, and kind of damaging the decentralized nature of it. And, getting how many people do I need to launch the blockchain before I feel it's secure enough to actually get people to use it for currency, right? 10, 12 people is probably not enough. Maybe I need 100, right? Mm-hmm. So getting that first initial amount of people to buy into it, right, could also be a factor. So there's so many things to consider.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
No worries.
And so, excuse me, sorry about that. So just to wrap everything up, we actually did go over this at the very beginning, which was how can a play to earn help or even hurt the economy of the world in the years to come? Does anybody would like to start this off?
I have my thoughts on this, or even lean towards being a bit esoteric. I think that the whole playground of the metaverse allows us as humanity collectively to begin to experiment in a virtual environment, but yet it does have real world implications. But it's a place where we can kind of stretch our wings to see what we might want to even take from what we learn into the real world. So I see it as being an incredible sandbox that we can use to learn about how we might want to run the world economy.
You're muted, Banjo.
You're muted, Banjo.
I think Axie is showing that we can move value from wealthier areas to less wealthy areas. So I think there's something there that is worth continuing to look at. My concern there is how productive is that society then? If you've got a whole village, for example, stuck on their phone playing Axie all day, what are they really going to accomplish in their community that's actually productive to their, general,
Somebody's got to take the trash out.
Right. Somebody has to do the normal jobs. And
yeah.
So I think there's value in moving that money. I think there's still, how do you make the game productive for the society and not just people looking at their phones all day? I think there's something there. And also I think the other thing that's going to be a challenge for developers is we know that Axie is primarily mobile. So as we move into games like Mirandus or Star Atlas that are primary PC or browser based, how is that going to translate in moving that value from one place to another where they're stuck on mobile? You almost have to have a mobile input.
Definitely.
I feel like as our technology has gotten better, the world has gotten smaller and smaller, right? And this is just the latest iteration of this progress that humanity's been moving towards. I think in a way, Pandora's box has been kind of opened, and I'm curious to see if they can get it shut again. Because what's happened here is the power of decentralization has been exposed. And it's been enabled by Bitcoin originally, and now all these blockchains that follow. Like you mentioned, Banjo. I mean, you have a bit of an arbitrage between the Western nations and the so-called third world nations right now, where value is being moved into these economies at an exponential rate, right? And that's going to cause some major shifts. But at the same time, you're moving to a situation where digital assets are going to start to trump physical assets because, in a way, they're going to be safer, right? Nobody can come over with a big stick and take your digital assets as easily as they can your physical assets anymore. And so borders are going to become less important, and people are going to be able to walk across borders with their assets without somebody being able to stop them. And, value is going to be moved around the world in a millisecond through a video game. That's going to be pretty hard for somebody to stop laundering or whatever whatever their excuse is for tracking everybody today, So I think that we're on the cusp of a major shift in humanity, and the metaverse is being built right before our eyes. The new nation, the new world. Columbus just discovered the new world in a way, and those people that were brave enough to jump all those ships and took those chances and went out there to the new world. I mean, it was dangerous, and a lot of them lost, and some of them, you know, received exponential or just incredible value for making those huge leaps. And I think that, we're doing that now, and there's going to be some issues. I mean, some governments are going to shut some stuff down, and there's going to be some pluses and some minuses, some big waves and some low troughs, and we're going to have to get through it. But at the end of the day, I don't think this is going away. I think that we're going to have to learn how to operate outside of these centralized forms of government. I think things are going to move towards a more decentralized way. Not completely, but I think we're going to have to find a new balance that we don't know. We don't currently know what that balance is, but I think we're going to have to find it.
Some of the writing on the wall with that, if you saw the news from just a couple of days ago, that Mark Zuckerberg wants to turn Facebook into a metaverse company. So you're seeing some big corporations starting to lean in that direction.
Yeah, I just want to make a note on that as well. I feel it could be empowering for a population or a town or a country's people, and they can ultimately demand more from their government so that whatever living wage there is could be increased. So there'll definitely be a political shift that takes place with governments if they're going to ignore what's taking place here in its early stages. So going down into decades to come, when play to earn becomes a part of the salary of almost anyone and everyone, if they choose for it to be that a certain percentage. All right, maybe you won't be able to live off of one particular game, but you can play multiple games, and in an 8-hour day of work, you can make a good enough salary then, and having fun with your family. People have more than one person in the family, maybe not all the time, but there's many ways that this can play out, and I think it'll empower people because, like Bonafide said, you can just pick up your wallet and go. You can import it to another computer in a different country, right? So you don't necessarily have to stay where you are and suffer from at the whims of a government and its policies and its monetary policies. But yeah, I think.
Can I offer?
Go ahead.
Can I offer one way to look at this too? Is in the real world, it takes money to make money, right? A lot of times, and so the people who are wealthy get more wealthy, and the people who aren't necessarily get stuck where they are. So I think pay to earn seems to kind of be going similar model. People who at least are able to invest in early can be cheaper, but late game it can be very expensive. Axie Infinity being an example, right? And if you want to get in there now, you need cash, right? I can't just jump in there now, with just a couple $100 and make a huge living, not as big a living anyway, right? And so I think you'll have similar scenarios where you'll have people, who get in it on it early, making some good money. But that's true in anything in life. If you're the first one to make toothpaste, and you're looking pretty good right about now, right? So many decades later, right? But sure. You got to be the first person to get in on something, and then it becomes a big thing. But imagine now if I wanted to get on toothpaste and reap the rewards of everybody needs toothpaste, right? That'd be a lost cause. This, there's no point in me doing it now, right? It's gone past. So I think play to earn, I think it's going to be like whoever gets in there first gets in there. Every new game that comes out will obviously be rewarding to the first people that discover it. It's like, you found a pot of a vein of gold in the ground, right? And it's like, damn it, I just found some gold, right? Not everybody's going to be able to find, necessarily own that same vein. Maybe everybody starts flocking around, but only the first people that start digging it up will get it, and then it's gone, right? And then everybody else has to find their own. So I see that happening. I don't see like an entire nation's being able to jump in and earn anything much. Maybe earn a few dollars here and there, but they're going to have to supplement it by doing something else, right? Like for example, Townstar, right? You can play that game and probably make like $5. Like that's not going to pay my bills, right? Maybe my coffee or something once a week, but that's about it, right? But for some people, that $5 is a lot of money, right? In certain parts of the world. So it also depends on where you live, right? Pay to earn doesn't mean anything to me here unless I can really make a lot of money. But maybe to somebody in Cambodia, it's big time. Or Philippines. There are people that pretty much paid off their house entirely and they're making lots of money in the Philippines, right?
There's people that have bought multiple houses in the Philippines.
Yeah, exactly.
But to go back to what you're saying, right? the traditional structures of centralized control have locked a lot of people out. I mean, there's a lot of people that are unemployed around the world because they're locked out of the system. And that's one thing that that was the genius that Axie had when they did those scholarships, right? Is that you're onboarding people who were previously locked out of the economic world. And so, yes, the first movers with the big bags, yeah, we can come in and we can buy up a bunch of stuff and make, massive profits from it. But at the same time, the guys that are in scholarships right now are going to be massively ahead of some people in Western countries who are too slow to get on the bandwagon. You know what I mean? And that's also a thing. So I think you're, on the one hand, yeah, the rich are going to get richer usually, but at the same time, there's a shift happening where there's a bit of an arbitrage where the poorer people are getting an opportunity here as well. And that's, to me, is the beauty of crypto in general,
We're also going to see
more
some
people here.
exploitation.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm saying we're also going to see some exploitation. We're going to see sweatshops.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
We're going to see
Unfortunately.
forced labor. We're going to see potentially privatized, prisons using that as a means to make money.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to see a lot of interesting things rear their head over the years.
Isn't happening already. I know one guy who actually was
IOI,
hiring
right?
a bunch of people doing that. Yeah.
If I look into the future, I see a bunch of things happening. So, governments love new sources of tax revenue, right? They get giddy about it. And if you look at, like, for example, in the States and Canada, they legalized cannabis largely because of tax revenue. There's a lot of tax money there. So as we think about play to earn gaming, and as governments see that this money is going from one country to another, somebody's going to jump in there and jump on that from a tax revenue perspective. I think number two, what's going to happen is we're going to start to see players unions start to show up at some point where there's somebody understands that there's a certain dollar amount being made, and there's going to be players who step up into some sort of unionized activity. I see it coming. Maybe it won't, but I think it will.
I love that idea, though.
And then the last piece of, we'll stay away from that hot button issue because we probably have pretty widely understandings or beliefs on unions. But the last thing I see happening is there's going to be opportunities for individuals, whales, or corporations to fund the scholarships more than just providing the Axies. So in the future, if you think about some PC or web browser based gaming, there might be, okay, I'm signing up for a scholarship. Okay, well, here's your deck. Here's your network connection. We're going to pay for this, but you're going to play for us, and this will be the earnings. So I see more funding being done in the scholarship side than just providing the NFTs.
I think we've covered all of the story points in Ready Player One.
Yeah, I mean, when Banjo was talking, all I saw was jumpsuits with IOI plastered on them. Shout out to Bay Quest. That was a great comment. Very timely, sir.
So actually, with Axie Infinity, question to you guys, I guess. I haven't been that involved in the game, but is there a point where it becomes too far out of reach for the average person to get involved?
Well, through the scholarship system, that's the beauty of it, right? Is that what they did that was genius was they said, hey, we're going to provide the infrastructure to where an investor can come in, buy up the Axies necessary to play the game, and then allow anybody else to use those Axies in order to play the game. And then you have, different types of incentive structures that, the community kind of built based on that. Usually it's like a 50-50 split between the owner and the gamer, right? So that's the only game I know of currently that's doing that. There's several games that I've seen that are paying out right now, but I haven't seen any that are providing that kind of opportunity yet. But that's the opportunity that allows somebody with no money from a poor background to jump right in and be just as relevant as anybody else, really, right?
But how much does it get thinned out? Like, as for example, imagine if 1,000 people are joining every week. Is there a point where it gets so thin that there's like no point anymore?
I don't know if there's no point, but there is definitely a bottleneck that's happening right now. I mean, there's way more interest in scholarships than there are scholarships available. So that's currently an issue.
Because I can't see it as a perpetual money machine. I mean, there's got to be a certain limits, you would think, right? At some point, obviously the people at the beginning are making a lot more, which suggests that the people later on are making less. And if you extrapolate that far enough ahead, there's people making a lot less, and you can only go so far before you're making next to nothing. So I'm just wondering how long that would be. How well.
It's an interesting question. I mean, they have a decent economic model. You probably want to look into it. They have basically they have a dual token system, and then they have the axes operating kind of as a third economic tool, right? So it's kind of like if you think about like how the United States Federal Reserve plays around with interest rates and bonds and all that, right? So it's kind of similar to that in a way where they can kind of come in. They control the value of their tokens and the axes in a way. And so they can kind of control their economy. So it's an interesting thing. Obviously it's all a testing ground right now, right? Nobody knows what's going to happen, but
I'll look into it more. I don't want to derail the conversations from blockchain.
Oh no, it's fine, man.
But
yeah.
Since we're on the topic,
we can talk about anything.
I guess just on that note of just the economy of any particular NFT game that's going to be player owned or play to earn. When it comes to Axie specifically, because they're so far ahead as far as popularity, there's levers to pull, like Bond said, with the comparison of the government and how they can control interest rates. So to stimulate the economy. So the same thing would apply with Axies, where there's so much demand to get in to buy Axies is what's bringing the cost up, and only breeders can supply these Axies to the market for people who want them at a certain price. So the actual Sky Mavis team, they don't create Axies and they don't create small love potions. It's a proof of work concept when it comes to you have to play to earn the small love potions, which is required to breed Axies. So then there's more in circulation, if sold by the people who are breeding, which is the case right now. There's a bustling marketplace of supply and demand based off of just these types of things, and I don't see it stopping as far as the growth, but there's gonna come a time where there's updates and different game modes that come out for like land play and then V2 battles V2. So the landscape of how you play the game and what determines the price for any particular Axie will change because of the demand and the meta for each Axie's build at any particular time based off of whatever changes and updates that take place. So
I wonder if Mirandus would be similar to that as well, because Mirandus, they're trying to create an entire economy in the game, where obviously the people come in on early are able to secure deeds and other things. But I mean, there's nothing that says a person couldn't go mining for ore, create the most powerful weapon in the game somehow, and trade that for a deed, one day, or from the ground up. It might be a little harder, a lot more work, but they could absolutely, they make money in the game, maybe breeding horses or, helping people provide, like I might need, for example, ore for my jewelry shop. And so I may have to pay somebody else because I just personally don't have time to go get that ore, right? So I definitely see, economies of Mirandus coming up where I am paying other people in crypto to go get that, probably in-game gold, which they could easily convert, mint if they wanted to, outside the game to actual currency. And I could literally see third world countries going around helping to, provide work in the game that literally helps to, pay their house again. But it would be interesting to see that en masse, right? But then, like was mentioned earlier, who's going to take out the trash if everybody gets involved, right? It's going to be an interesting future with virtual making, because you're basically making people work in a virtual environment, right? Taking them from the physical environment, and you can only do so much of that before the physical world starts to collapse.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. I think that the best way to probably do it is have a hybrid model where you have to pay. Obviously, you're going to have to pay, make it more incentivizing for someone to physically walk into their job, like construction job, for example, have the 30-minute lunch, but then also in the contract, you can also negotiate how long do I get to play Axie for, right? Like, oh, you get 2 30-minute Axie breaks. So you get your first 30-minute Axie break, get your lunch, then you get another 30-minute Axie break halfway, and then you get to go home and then do whatever you want. And then that way you get stuff done in the real world and you get stuff done in the virtual world, and this person now getting paid for 2 jobs instead of just 1.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, maybe you could get paid in cryptocurrency for doing the physical work as well one day. Somehow you can tie it together, Yeah, so.
All right. Well, Thank you, GeneralFault, for being on the show and all of this fantastic
having me.
knowledge. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. And then all that knowledge that you gave earlier, just give me a little bit of insight on the back end of blockchain gaming nodes,
Yeah,
everything along that, and how pretty much how these games work. It's always good to know how. You don't have to know everything of how a card works, but you should at least know the basics. And thank you for sharing.
Anytime.
We appreciate you, General.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you guys too.
Thank you, man.
Did someone say announcements?
And then thank you, Ray, for bringing that up. So we do have a special announcement, as we did say earlier this morning. And Bonafide, if you'd like to go ahead and start us off with that.
Right on. Well, thank you, Metaverse community. First of all, thank you for joining us over the course of the last couple of weeks as we explored the Metaverse as the Mirandus Gentry. We hope this period of our existence was as both educational and enjoyable for you as it was for us. During this education, we have learned that the Metaverse is much bigger than any one game or any one company, and that the six of us here have a lot more to offer to the Metaverse as a whole. We appreciate everyone who has been with us as we learn this, and we hope you will continue to support us as we step out into the unknown and explore the rest of the Metaverse as the Metaverse nomads. To kick things off, our podcast will be back here again at the same time next Sunday as usual. What will be the changes? Well, first off, our name will now be the Metaverse Nomads as opposed to the Mirandus Gentry. Second, our content will become more varied, enjoyable, and educational for you. Great example was today, and an even better example is next Sunday. Instead of Mirandus, we will be discussing Star Atlas. This has been something that has been increasingly demanded by us from the community, and we serve you, and we serve the Metaverse, not one game, as the Metaverse Nomads. And we thought it proper to engage you on that topic first. Third, we will be switching our social media presence completely. We hope that you will look out for us on all platforms and follow or subscribe, as the case may be, to the Metaverse Nomads in the future. This is including the switching out of our old single game design Discord into our new Metaverse Nomads Discord. Yes, we are now moving to a new Discord. Consider these items a growing pain that you get to experience with us, as well as the rewards that will come because of it. So what's not going to change? Well, Rome, as our title and organizational structure in these games, won't change. No matter if we are called a guild or a clan, etc., in a particular game, we will always be Rome, and that won't change. Our team of 6 guys who love blockchain and love gaming won't change. Our love for and coverage of Mirandus when new information comes out, that won't change. Our direct, open, honest, and mildly confrontational stance when it comes to evaluating games, and dev teams, and projects, that won't change either. Most importantly, our community of NFT lovers and play-to-earn gamers, we hope that you will not change, except to grow larger with us as we welcome more of your interest into our show and improve ourselves to you even more consistently going forward with this new and more adaptable platform. We thank you guys for making this move with us.
You're
Here, here.
Fantastic. And I just want to share why I'm excited about this change. I think we all have demonstrated a love for Mirandus and play to earn gaming. And behind the scenes, not only between the 6 of us, but also in our Bathhouse channel within the Discord that we're currently on, there's definitely a lot of talk about different games. We have our Axie fans, we have our Star Atlas fans. And as we start to look deeper into other games, we start to see opportunities to have the same types of conversations about those games as well. So it's not just the podcast, the dialogue piece, but within that, there's also going to be some website. MetaverseNomads.com is going to be a website that will have resources and information up for you. Again, a Bonafide Shared will be on all social channels. You'll see some streaming that comes up on the channel as well. So it's really, we're broadening our exposure and bringing more of the play-to-earn game ecosystem to all of you.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that I appreciate about this move, for one, is that behind the scenes, this team, this group right here has really begun to gel. We're in alignment with how we see and how we want to look at the industry as a whole. And what I see that this does for Rome, for those in the guild, regardless of which game you choose to be a part of, is that it allows us to keep our ear to the ground, to keep you informed of things that are relevant to you with your interest in play to earn. And that is that Rome will continue to be a play to earn based guild across the varied multiverses that we all take part in. So this is kind of a way for us to also continue to empower you to take part and leverage the things that we're learning and sharing as we go.
Awesome.
And then one other thing I just do want to mention, we're not moving away from the Mirandus game or Gala games. We're always going to be a part of the Gala games. We just want to expand our horizons to other games that we find enjoyable, that you find enjoyable. And so this is a better way for us to expand on that.
Yeah, I think obviously the public wasn't privy to it, but we spent quite a bit of time debating the new name. And the reason we came up with the Metaverse Nomads was because, we want to be able to flow through all these games. I mean, the Metaverse is going to be Gala, it's going to be Star Atlas, it's going to be Axie, and there's going to be a new economy that's forming where these assets are moving between all these games. And we don't want to pigeonhole you. We don't want to pigeonhole ourselves by locking out a certain game because of misplaced loyalty or something like that. So yes, we will be bringing people from other games back to Gala. I'm a node owner, and I love Gala. And at the same time, we're going to be bringing people from Gala to other games, and you guys are going to be able to experience different ways to earn in other things, and be able to come back and buy more assets in Gala, or buy stuff in other games, or better yet, buy that house in the Philippines or in the real world, right? That's what we want for you, and that's what we want for ourselves.
Can I also say, if I may, I see us possibly working together as well. Since the very beginning, when Haven started, well over a year ago, originally we started with Gala, but as time went on and they started adopting other games, we started realizing, that teams started asking, other people started asking, and we have about 1,300 members right now, and there's so many different types of different games that they play, right? And so our server started to expand to adopt multiple games, and not just Gala games, but I mean Axie. We've got entire channels for other stuff, and yeah, I totally think that you guys are going in the right direction. I think embracing all the different games and having a place where people can come together and share their experiences, and we even have a channel where people can post which new games. If there's a new game on the market, then let us know. Let us know what it is, right? Let us look into it and maybe get involved, right, at some point, and stuff like that. So I definitely see, we could even have cool events between our servers, right, one day. So definitely, yeah, keep it keep going in that direction. Definitely embrace it all. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I just want to add too that we see ourselves as Rome, a force to be reckoned with when it comes to just the in-game, guild and enjoyment of playing these games. Not just for monetary purposes, but also for enjoyment. These new games are promising, and the added component of playing and earning, and taking part in the commerce of selling and buying and transferring or battling, it's pretty exciting. So going down the line, we would consider absolutely doing some type of collaboration, and anyone is welcome to roam from from Haven, right? And being the metaverse, it's just a natural flow of things. When you're gonna enter the metaverse, you're not just gonna be playing one game, right? It's just over time you're gonna hear and see and feel that you can expand larger than what you're exposing yourself to. So it's a promising future, to say the least.
I think the other thing to add is we're really born of the community for the community. So we came from a community of gamers who are interested in one game, and we try to incorporate and involve the community as much as possible. So if there's something that you have on your mind as a listener that you want to hear us talk about within the play to earn ecosystem, whether it's on the podcast or something you'd like to see on a website, reach out to us, let us know. We obviously want to do our best to make sure you're happy with what you're listening to and watching as well.
Let me just co-sign right quick on what Banjo just said. I mean, yeah, obviously you guys see us. We read the comments and we put you guys up on screen as appropriate. Yeah, feel free to reach out to us anytime during a podcast or on Twitter or any type of social media and let us know what you guys want to get covered. And we'll definitely be taking that into consideration. You might even end up on the podcast yourself, just like we've been doing for the past couple of weeks. So that's also an opportunity for you.
Yeah, and one thing about the new Discord is that Metaverse Nomads is going to be like the central hub of all the games. So there's going to be a channel for everything podcast related, website related, etc., etc.
Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead, Ray. Ultra, you can take us out, man.
All right. So, thank you for joining us for the last entry of the Mirandus Gentry. And then next time we meet you, we will be the Metaverse Nomads. So we'll see you there next time, same day. And you guys have a great day.
Metaverse Nomads!
Make sure you follow, like, subscribe.
Bye, everyone.
Get through this
Have a good one.
Right on.
later.